In the cramped prison, the dim light shone on two people who, despite being handcuffed, were still sitting and arguing. Seeing Catherine standing before the prison bars, the two men called out in unison, "Catherine!" Her brother, Tove, happily ran over, grabbed the bars and said, "I'm here, quickly, find a way to let me and Dad out." Catherine did not reply, but her expression even looked a bit bad. Her father, Kailak, saw her like that and his expression darkened. He asked in a harsh voice, "Catherine, what kind of expression do you have?" Catherine's brother still didn't understand anything. He looked at her anxiously and questioned, "Can you just watch me and my father being locked up in prison? If you still have a conscience, go and beg Lu Feng." Seeing that she did not leave, Tove became impatient and continued to urge her, "Go, what are you standing there for?" Duke Kailak saw his son like that and shouted, "Shut up." Tove heard the shout and was scared. He could only call out, "Father." The Duke looked at Catherine questioningly. What did she come for? Catherine calmly replied, "I came to say goodbye, Father." The Duke frowned and asked again, "Goodbye, what do you mean?" At this moment, Catherine finally spoke up and poured out everything in her heart. "Before, I was your daughter, a tool that lived for your desires. From now on, I will be Catherine of Xiang City, living only for myself, and I will live a better life." Duke Kailak heard his son say that and laughed sarcastically, "Haha, only a woman like her, delusional." Catherine showed an attitude of not caring about what her father said. She also did not need her father to believe. "In addition, I also came to convey Lu Feng's intention to deal with this matter. Father will be sent to the processing factory of Taeduong City, where he will do manual work, along with the fourth prince." Catherine's words were like a thunderbolt to the Duke and his son. He shouted angrily, What do you mean, Lu Feng doesn't intend to let me go?" Catherine had nothing more to say to her father. She turned around, leaving only two words, "Goodbye." Duke Kailak no longer had the disdainful attitude he had just now. He gripped the prison bars tightly and called out loudly, "Wait, Catherine, come back, you bastard, I'm calling you back." In another place called Chaos, Dees walked while humming to the tune, "Hum, haha." Obi sat in front and saw Dees's mood, so he turned to Ryan and said, "Dees is really excited today." Ryan replied after hearing that he was returning to the Western Ocean City. Dees didn't notice the conversation. She was happily thinking about food, dumplings, pizza, fried chicken thighs, roast pork. Suddenly, Ryan smelled something strange. She spoke up, "It smells like blood." Immediately after, someone in the group ran over and shouted, "Lord Ryan, Lord Obi, there are people fighting in front of us." Looking at the equipment, it was a group of bandits robbing a group of people. The three people sitting in the carriage couldn't help but be surprised. In front of where Dees was about to move, there were several corpses lying in pools of blood. Two robbers were threatening two people in green. One of them threatened the old man. Where did he want to run to? The other one also spoke proudly, "Hee, this old man looks like a noble, he must have a lot of money." The noble's servant held his sword tightly to protect the person behind him. He reminded, "My lord, go quickly." However, the robber opposite suddenly attacked, slashing the servant's neck with a sword without thinking twice. The old noble looked around and saw that he was alone. He said fearfully, "You will be punished." The robber was still boasting, "Old man, cruel words cannot save you." He raised his sword and prepared to strike down. The old man could only close his eyes and clasp his hands in prayer, "Oh God." Suddenly a loud noise rang out, the sound of metal colliding. The sword that had just slashed down was blocked by something. The robber looked at the person who had just stopped him. It was Dees. Obi also arrived at this time, giving the order, "Brothers, kill." The bandits saw too many people appear. They immediately ran away. The beastmen ran away. Still in the chaos, after the robbers ran away, Obi turned to ask the fox girl, "Ryan, it's settled, how do we deal with these people?" Ryan glanced at the shivering captured robbers and said, "If we keep them as manual laborers, how can we eat them?" Obi also agreed and replied, "Okay." Ryan suddenly looked at the person standing behind Obi and asked, Who is he?" Only then did Obi turn around in surprise, a little embarrassed. "Wow, I really didn't notice." The old noble's smiling face revealed the wrinkles of old age. He placed his hand on his chest and said, "Thank you very much for saving us. I am Parkin, from the Yadian Kingdom. I come with good intentions, to convey to the world the grace of my master." Dees looked out from behind and asked, "So it's a foreigner?" Ryan's expression was not interested at all. She hummed, missionary. Ryan continued to ask, "So why did you come here? This place is remote." The nobleman heard her question, a little embarrassed but still answered honestly, "Actually, I'm lost, that's right. My lords, can you take me back to Yadian country, then I will definitely pray to the gods to protect you." Hearing him say that, Ryan coldly replied, "I'm not interested." Dees raised his hand to touch his head and replied, "This won't do, we still have to return to Taeduong City." Mr. Parkin was refused, his face pale, if he met the bandits again. Ryan saw that and raised his hand to suggest that was his business, but he could follow us back to the western city. The old man was so happy that he cried. Okay, then I'll bother you all. Everyone quickly packed up their things as Obi said and started to set off. Parkin thought about his current situation and couldn't help but sigh. He originally wanted to go to Yinglu to expand the church and make some initial achievements, but he didn't expect this place to be so chaotic. Forget it, wait until they reach Xi'an City, find some guards to take him back to Yadian. On the way back, the curious green-eyed fox girl asked the noble old man, "Human, Parkin, he said he came from Yadian, what was it like there?" Parkin replied, "It was a kingdom protected by gods. In Yadian, the vast fields stretched out and were filled with barley, even in the cold winter it was as warm as spring." The fox girl heard him say that and couldn't help but doubt, was it really that good? Parkin proudly boasted, "Of course, our Yadian country is also a blessed country, the only lost land in this land of suffering." The fox girl heard this, her eyes lit up like stars in admiration, she exclaimed, "Wow." Ryan standing behind saw this and couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. He snorted and said, "You only know how to brag." Dee standing next to him laughed, "I found it quite interesting." Old man Parkin had good hearing. Hearing Dee say that, he smiled brighter than flowers and asked, "Oh, is Miss Dees interested in Yadian country?" Dees was mentioned and immediately waved his hand in response, "No, I just feel that Taeduong City is also such a good city, winter is not cold, there are many wheat and so on." Parkin heard Dees say that, the flowery atmosphere at that time immediately disappeared, his face became gloomy. Miss Dees, you have been to many cities." Dees heard the question and smiled and replied, "It's not much, ha ha ha." Parkin saw her answer like that, his face raised again, his tone seemed to be teaching, Xi'an City was her hometown. Of course she felt very good, but she had seen many cities outside, she would know that this world had many better places. Seeing him like that, Dees and Ryan couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Mr. Parkin finished speaking and saw that no one answered. He narrowed his eyes and thought, "Young man, little knowledge, Taeduong City, a small city never heard of, how good could it be?" Dee suddenly turned back, she said to Ryan as if she was talking to the old man, "Taeduong City is not my hometown, but I like it very much." Then Dees exclaimed, "Ah, I see the western city." The majestic western city appeared, the wind blew leaves, and the crowd was bustling. Mr. Parkin saw the scene, he could not help but be surprised, bewildered, and exclaimed, "Here, so many fields." Seeing that he looked surprised, Dees innocently asked, "What's wrong? Doesn't the Yadian kingdom have a lot of land?" Ryan stood next to her and heard her question, then he burst out laughing. Mr. Parkin smiled wryly, raised his hand to cough a few times, "Cough, this place is very good. The land size is as large as the small town in the countryside of Yadian." Then suddenly when crossing the Yutui River, Mr. Parkin was surprised again, "Here, this bridge." Dees continued to ask, "How is this bridge? Yadian is fine." Parkin didn't know how many times he had to pretend to cough today and replied, "Cough cough cough, this bridge is very good, I thought only Yadian country had it." Ryan glanced at him disdainfully, she sarcastically said, "You continue, I'm listening." The group continued to enter the city. Mr. Parkin looked at the streets and then at the relationship between humans and beastmen here. He felt as if he had been slapped in the face by his previous words. The whole way I could not utter another word. The sky gradually darkened, the full moon slowly appeared behind the clouds. The Lord's mansion, Dees, Obi and Ryan just entered and shouted, "I'm back." Ellie and Mina heard the voice and turned around happily calling, "Dees." The three Westerners greeted each other, and they hugged each other after a long time of not seeing each other. Ryan and Obi walked to Lu Feng's desk, and Tae handed over a stack of papers and said, "Sir Lu Feng, thank you for helping us with the wheat. This time we brought ice to Xi'an City," said Lord Bella, "and there was a card of it as a gift to you." Lu Feng smiled happily and accepted it, "Then I won't be polite." He continued, "The journey was tiring, there was no danger on the way." Ryan honestly replied, "No, but he saved a priest along the way, and bragged so much that my ears grew calluses." Obi stood next to him, his face also showing a helpless expression as he added, "Luckily he knew what was good for him, and didn't follow us. We separated when we entered the city, otherwise Lord Lu Feng would have suffered, huh?" Lu Feng heard the two of them complaining and immediately comforted them, "They are just priests, don't mind them." Suddenly, Dees ran over and hugged Lu Feng, making him blush. She complained, "Young master, it's so hot on the road." Lu Feng did not push her away, he smiled and said to her, Dees has worked hard, I will ask Nicole to make delicious food for her to wash away the dust later." Dees was even happier when she heard that the food was delicious, "Thank you young master." Lu Feng suddenly remembered something, he raised his head and asked, "Right, what church is that person from?" Ryan raised his finger to touch his cheek trying to remember, it seemed to be the priest. Outside the city lord's mansion, large buildings shimmered with light in the dark night. A hand reached out as if to grasp everything before its eyes. Parkin's face was full of sinisterness. Under the dim moonlight, he coldly calculated, what a good city, it seemed like the plan had to be changed, he had to let this city feel the grace of the god. Back in Taeduong City, at the city lord's dining hall, the dining table was filled with delicacies, from roast chicken, steamed crab, hamburgers to sea cucumber, octopus. Looking at them made one crave them. Dees held a chicken leg in her hand, and while eating, she turned to see Flay lying dejectedly on the table and asked, "Strange, why aren't you eating?" Ellie was standing in front of the electric fan, complaining, "Dees, don't you feel hot at all?" Nicole explained that it had been much hotter these days, and the wind from the fan was hot too. There were many delicious dishes on the table, but everyone was too hot to move their chopsticks, and they all lazily lay down on the table. Lu Feng saw this and spoke up. It seemed like it was time. Mina heard that, her eyes were half doubtful, half tired, and wondering, "Young master." Lu Feng called Nicole and Dees over to give instructions. "Nicole, tell someone to bring 2 basins of water. Dees, bring the rocks you brought back today." The two of them immediately did so. "Yes, young master." Mina also remembered when she heard Lu Feng say that. That's right, the young master once said that he could make something when Dees returned. Ellie also asked curiously. "Young master, what do you want to do, so mysterious?" Lu Feng answered with just one word, "Ice." Ellie listened with excitement in her eyes. "Ice? How could there be ice in the summer?" "Young master, you used magic again." Flay was also full of interest at this moment. His sparkling eyes repeated 2 words, "magic." As for Mina, she seemed to be very familiar with the surprises Lu Feng brought. She said, she felt like no matter what the young master did now, she wouldn't be surprised anymore. Deesa's voice rang out. "Young master, here is what you need." Lu Feng heard this and jumped up from his seat. He smiled and called everyone to gather. "Okay, girls. Next, it's time to see the miracle." In front of him was a basin filled with ice. Lu Feng took another basin full of water and placed it in the stone basin. Then pour something blue into the pot. Then a miracle happened. Everyone around witnessed the frozen water and exclaimed at the same time. There was really ice. Ellie pressed her finger on the hard ice. She wondered how this ice could be created. Dees immediately guessed, could this be the reason the young master wanted that mineral? Lu Feng replied, "Yes, this mineral is called pepper rock. It contains something called nitrate. When this thing comes into contact with water, it will absorb a large amount of heat. After the heat in the water is absorbed, it will turn into ice." Ellie put her hand on her chin to show that she understood, "So that's it." Mina looked delighted, feeling so cool, so comfortable. Dees was still the same as before, not understanding anything. He put his hands behind his head, chewed on a chicken leg and spoke. He said it was simple, just throw ice into the water. Hearing Dees, Lu Feng broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly said, "No, there was also a need to seriously control the flow." Hearing this, Mina immediately reacted. She said firmly, "Young master, this absolutely cannot be known by others." Lu Feng looked at Mina's eyes and reached out to pat her head to comfort her. "Don't worry, I will strictly control this technical project in the future." A moment later, Nicole returned with a strange yellow box in her hand. "Young master, this is item number 6 in your inventory." Lu Feng reached out to receive the box, not forgetting to say, "You've worked hard, Nicole." Mina looked at the box curiously. She asked, "Young master, what is this?" Lu Feng replied mysteriously. This is a good thing." After a while of not knowing what happened, at this moment the space echoed within a sound. The beautiful glass cups were filled with ice chips. Also decorated were fruits and candies. Everyone in the room looked at it with sparkling eyes like stars, exclaiming, "So beautiful." Ellie couldn't hide her excitement and ran over to pull Lu Feng's hand and asked, young master, what is this? Why is it so beautiful?" Lu Feng looked a little helpless when he saw Ellie's eyes. He said, "This is called shaved ice. It's made with this thing. It is a simple ice crusher. A handle to rotate. In the middle is a place to put the ice in to crush. The spring shaft is attached in the middle. The bottom is also the place for the crushed ice to come out." Lu Feng explained further. After adding fruit and sugar water, it will become a very delicious dish. Flay tasted it with his hands. Then turned to look at Lu Feng with shining eyes. "So sweet." Lu Feng grabbed Flay's chair with his hand. Then urged everyone. "Alright, let's eat quickly. If it doesn't melt, it won't be delicious." Everyone enjoyed the shaved ice together. Everyone looked satisfied. Only Ellie, probably because it was too cold, held her head and cried out. "Ah, my head. It hurts, it hurts." Flay was eating next to Dees. Suddenly she called out, "Young master." Lu Feng heard the call and immediately paid attention. Asked, "What's wrong?" "Flay." The little girl lowered her head, perhaps a little embarrassed, and spoke in a low voice. Young master, can I bring this dish for you to eat? The weather has been too hot lately. Your temper is not good. Seeing Flei's sincerity, Lu Feng immediately agreed. He also gave instructions. Go, but be quick. Otherwise, it will be gone. Flei received the red-eyed agreement and replied. Thank you, young master. Then he quickly picked up the cup of shaved ice and ran away. Lu Feng watched her figure and thought to himself. Indeed, he had to think about preservation. He couldn't eat it all at once. It was also inconvenient to expand the business to the entire city. Thinking for a moment, Lu Feng turned and said. Nicole, tell Yuffie to come over later. Nicole replied even though she was eating well. Yes, young master. In the Western Ocean City, the bird tribe camp. Leia looked at the pink and white shaved ice plate decorated with red strawberries and asked suspiciously. She said this ice wasn't from the ice cellar but was made by Lu Feng himself. Flei didn't hide it and immediately responded with an aha sound. Leia picked up the bowl of shaved ice and tried it. She also couldn't help but exclaim. Lu Feng's brain was really amazing. It was so hot, and he could still make ice. Flei naturally agreed. She was even showing off. The young master was of course amazing. After all, the young master was my fiancé. Flei's husband must be amazing. Leia was so busy eating that she didn't realize the meaning of her sister's words, so she didn't say anything. Yes, that's right, her sister's husband. A moment later, Leia suddenly realized something was strange. She couldn't believe it and asked, "What did you just say?" Flei didn't care about her sister's reaction. She innocently replied, "Oh, I haven't told you yet. At first, the young master promised me that when I turned 18, he would marry me." Hearing this, Leia broke the spoon she was holding. She gritted her teeth in anger and shouted loudly, "Lu Feng." Soon the silence of the dark night was broken by a scream. On this side of the city lord's mansion, suddenly there was a sound of sneezing. Yuffie stood in front of Lu Feng at this moment, asking with concern, "Sir Lu Feng, are you okay?" Lu Feng covered his mouth with his hand, repeatedly saying, "It's okay, it's okay." Then, he took out a drawing and gave it to Yuffie as instructions. Yuffie, this time he called her here because he wanted her to make this. The drawing had a rather strange shape. According to the picture, there were two layers. The outer layer was marked as being made of insulating material. Yuffie looked at the blueprint and didn't quite understand. She asked, "Lord Lu Feng, what is this?" Lu Feng raised his hand and coughed a few times before explaining, "A refrigerator. Actually, it would be more appropriate to call it a heat-retaining device. I plan to use this to preserve ice." Yuffie suddenly remembered something. She tried to confirm, "Is it the one Nicole just fed me?" Lu Feng replied, "Yes." Hearing that, Yuffie was happy, patted her chest and assured, "Don't worry, Lord Lu Feng, I guarantee to complete the mission." Lu Feng then gave Yuffie a book. He added, "In addition, there is one more thing. There is a type of manufacturing technique in here, called alloy. I hope you can learn it." Yuffie reached out to take the book. Hearing a strange word, she repeated it, "Alloy." Lu Feng heard her tone and immediately raised his hand to explain. "Yes, through the properties of metals fusing together, creating something new, making iron tools have the hardness of gold, and making metal have the strength of bronze. Next there are many things including air fortresses, we all need alloys." Yuffie heard Lu Feng say so much, she felt a little flustered and sweaty, then timidly asked, "Lord Lu Feng, such an important thing is given to me, is it really appropriate?" Lu Feng smiled, he said in a firm tone, "There is nothing inappropriate, I believe you very much." Yuffie received his trust and was patted on the head, so she happily replied, "Yes, I will definitely not let down Lord Lu Feng. Then I will return to the guild." "Lord Lu Feng, wait for my good news." Lu Feng curved his eyes as he escorted Yuffie back, not forgetting to remind her to be careful on the road. After Yuffie left, Lu Feng returned to his desk, on which was a tray containing something very strangely shaped. He let out a breath. Next was this. Lu Feng rubbed the yellow ore with his hand, then picked it up and examined it under the moonlight. While looking at it, he thought, although there was a pepper stone, it was time to start making gunpowder. Although he didn't intend to develop it as a main focus, it was still good to help 11 Yang have another trump card. The gunpowder materials were lacking: sulfur and coal. Coal was easy, but for sulfur, the most convenient place was a volcano. Furthermore, it's not just sulfur. What other resources does this world have that I need? I have to investigate carefully. Lu Feng rubbed his chin and made a decision. It's time to go out and explore. Suddenly, the door to the study opened. Leia entered with a face full of anger, shouting, "Lu Feng, come out here for me." Lu Feng was delighted to see Leia appear. "Leia, you came at the right time, I have something to discuss with you." Leia was still angry at this moment, clenching her fists and repeating Lu Feng's words, "Looking for me, to discuss." She stomped her feet on the ground, and Leia's surroundings now seemed to be a raging fire. No matter what Lu Feng wanted to say, he shouted, "I don't agree. At this moment, Leia thought Lu Feng was talking about the marriage between him and her sister. Lu Feng looked dumbfounded, 3 big question marks appeared above his head, and said back, I haven't said anything yet. Seeing Lu Feng's attitude, Leia became even angrier. She shouted loudly, don't think I don't know what you're planning. No matter what you say, I won't agree, she thought to herself in resentment, wanting to marry Flay, he was still a child. Leia continued to question, I don't understand, there are so many people around you, why don't you change to someone else? Lu Feng's face now looked like it was about to write down, who am I, where is this? Not only did 3 question marks appear above his head, but perhaps the entire space around him was also filled with doubts and resistance. Could it be that there was too much work recently, but if Leia didn't agree, she wouldn't be able to find someone more suitable? Finally, Lu Feng spoke, his face still in a state of panic, saying, in short, sit down first. Actually, I've been thinking a lot, am I sometimes a bit too much? Leia sat opposite him, arms crossed in front of her chest, listening to him speak and only coldly snorted. Lu Feng picked up the teapot and poured tea into a cup, then handed it to Leia. The proud bird girl took it, not forgetting to judge him, it seemed he was quite self-aware. She picked up the cup of tea and drank, and couldn't help but think of her younger sister. Flay was so small, yet he could do it. Lu Feng suddenly continued, after thinking about it, the most suitable person I could think of was her. The tea that Leia had just drunk, before she could swallow it, was sprayed out by Lu Feng's words. Leia stood up abruptly when she heard Lu Feng say that, her face flushed red, and she stammered, What did you say, before? Well, Lu Feng didn't expect her to have such a big reaction, but he still replied, Flay was too young now, a lot of things for her were too early to talk about, at least we had to wait until she was a little older. But Lu Feng's point here was about the missions that had to be done outside, he had no idea what Leia was thinking, the two of them were talking about chicken and she was talking about duck so they didn't understand each other. Leia was furious and firmly refused, no way. Lu Feng saw her like that and couldn't say anything more, he could only stop and reply, okay. However, Lu Feng couldn't help but feel a little upset. He thought to himself, it seems like she's been so busy lately that she's been tired. He could only find someone else, but who should he find? Leia looked at Lu Feng in front of her and sighed. She couldn't help but think. After being hid like this, could it be that he's seriously considering it? Wait, actually thinking about it seriously, Lu Feng is also good, very strong and smart, good towards beastmen, being promiscuous is a habit that all nobles have, it's not his fault. Besides, he also seriously considered it. Thinking for a while, Leia's face turned red at some point, she said, Lu Feng, you're in a hurry. Lu Feng didn't understand what was going on and asked, what? Leia continued to speak, there were many things that had not been discussed, how could she easily agree with him, at least we had to let each other understand each other for another year or two, moreover, the issue of food between us, we also had to think about the relationship between humans and beasts. Lu Feng heard her speak, and seemed to understand that she misunderstood him. He raised his hands, signaling for her to stop talking. He explained, wait, I only have one task for you. Leia heard him say that and her eyes filled with shame. She shouted loudly, breaking the silence of the night. The mission, why didn't you say so sooner? Leia knew she misunderstood, so she got straight to the point. Leia asked, what is a volcano? This was the first time she heard this term. Lu Feng explained, the place they usually passed by was no different from other high mountains. But at some point, smoke and fire would erupt, and if they flew for too long from the top of the mountain, they could even see red lava. Leia wondered, did big mountains erupt smoke and fire? Yes, but it's dangerous there must be dragons. Lu Feng's eyes lit up, doubtfully asked, dragon? Leia nodded and said, yes, my clansmen and I saw that kind of mountain when we were hunting dragons. So it's in the Forbidden You mountain range, at the foot of the mountain is where the dragons rest. Lord Lu Feng, do you have any weapons that can kill dragons? Leia's eyes were cold and she said fiercely, I want to avenge my dead brothers. Seeing Leia so nervous, Lu Feng waved his hand and said, don't rush, let's see what the dragon looks like first. Leia replied, they all have a nose, 2 eyes, very small ears, very large heads, very small front legs and very large hind legs. A flash of light, something appeared in Lu Feng's mind, wait. Leia saw Lu Feng had an opinion and asked, what's wrong? Lu Feng did not reply, but took out a piece of paper and a pen and gave it to Leia. Lu Feng said, I already have the answer, but I still need you to draw it to confirm. Leia took the paper, drew for a long time, then gave it to Lu Feng. Lu Feng took the drawing, the corner of his mouth twitched, looking at the picture in confusion, this drawing was really good. On the paper, I couldn't tell what animal it was even uglier than the pictures drawn by children on Earth. Leia looked at Lu Feng's annoyed expression and said, what do you mean? Although the drawing was very bad, he still recognized the shape, it was a dinosaur, an animal that had become extinct on Earth tens of thousands of years ago. But unexpectedly, the dragon in this world was a dinosaur, and it was still alive. Lu Feng said to Leia with even more certainty, I can tell you with certainty, I really have a weapon in my hand, it can kill it. Leia was surprised, approached, lost her composure and said, really, lend it to me. Seeing Leia so anxious, he calmed her down, don't rush, listen to me first. This weapon, I call it the most powerful celestial weapon, intended to be used as a weapon for the airborne fortress. With its attack power, it can penetrate the ice fortress, even if the protective shield is made of iron, it cannot defend against it. But unfortunately, its weight is currently too heavy, even if she wants to use this weapon to deal with the dinosaurs, it will be very difficult. Leia snorted angrily, her face full of unwillingness. Lu Feng continued, but I already told Yuffie to improve it. I promise, once the improvement is complete, I will give it to you to use. Leia breathed a sigh of relief, fortunately there was still hope, and said, okay, that's all for now. Anyway, I'll help you investigate that volcano first, to see if there's what you said. Lu Feng gave the drawing to Leia and said, that's right, if you see anything you don't know, you can take it back. The things on the paper also help me pay attention. It's very important, and you should also bring some people along. Also, this is a routine mission, safety must be the top priority at all times. Leia nodded, impatiently saying, I know. Lu Feng seemed to remember something, he still didn't know why Leia came to see him in the first place. Lu Feng asked, right, before that, she said that they had to get to know each other for a year or two, what did she want to talk about? Leia's whole body stiffened, her face flushed red, she panicked and didn't know what to say. Then she got angry and shouted, nobody can ask. Scene change, in Lu Feng's office, Nina looked at the strange thing on the table, curiously asked, young master, what are these things? Lu Feng leisurely sat on the chair, slowly explaining, these things can change the world. This is called sulfur, which can change the rules of the world. Lu Feng looked at the white thing beside him again and continued, this thing is called rubber, it can accelerate the change of the world. Nina's face was surprised and she exclaimed. Lu Feng thought to himself, if it is sulfur, since there are volcanoes, it will be easy to get, but he doesn't know if this world has rubber. If not, he must quickly return to Earth to get the seeds to plant here. Then Lu Feng looked at Mina and asked curiously, that's right, why did you come here? Mina replied worriedly, I saw that when Leia first arrived, her complexion wasn't good, and I was worried that the two of you were having a conflict, so I came to see. If anything happened, I could protect the young master. Lu Feng was moved, his face red, he said, so that's how it is. Mina saw that everything was done, so she said goodbye to Lu Feng. Alright, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to sleep first. Mina just turned around, about to walk away, when a hand hugged her waist. Her whole body fell into Lu Feng's broad chest. Mina was a little surprised and panicked, then she heard Lu Feng whispering in her ear, I've arrived, sleep over at my place tonight. The two of them stuck together, the atmosphere was full of ambiguity. Mina's face was red, as if she was about to bleed, she put her hand on Lu Feng's chest, pushed him away and said, but I made an appointment with Ellie to play cards. Before she could finish speaking, Mina's lips were covered by Lu Feng. Mina continued, wait young master, don't be in a hurry, then Lu Feng pushed Mina down on the chair. In the quiet night, the two of them did something that made everyone embarrassed and blush. The next morning, in the western city, in a certain room. Dees held an ice cream in her hand, sucking it continuously, her face full of satisfaction, she kept saying, it's so delicious, so sweet. It's really great to eat ice cream in the hot summer. Ryan stood beside her, looking at Dees happily, he sighed, his face bored and not wanting to say anything. Dees saw that Ryan looked a bit uncomfortable, she guessed in her heart, in this hot weather, who wouldn't be upset? So Dees took an ice cream and invited Ryan, you should eat it too, the young master just made it, it's delicious. Ryan took the ice cream, but did not forget to remind, hey, Miss Dees, do you remember the mission that Lord Bella gave you? Dees then remembered and was stunned, vaguely saying, it seems like I forgot. Ryan was even more helpless, seeing her so happy, he definitely didn't remember anything. Lu Feng and Ellie were discussing work in the room, when suddenly, Dees ran in from outside. Lu Feng was startled, not knowing what happened, he raised his head and asked, Ellie, holding documents in her hands, also asked, Dees, what's the matter that you're in such a hurry? Dees ran in, suddenly, boom, a noise rang out. Ellie looked at where the noise came from, her face pale, suddenly opened her mouth, oh. On the ground was Dees with a pale face, both hands tightly holding her feet, her whole body rolling back and forth on the ground. Dees screamed in pain, her toes were broken, she cried out in pain without words. Lu Feng was shocked, Dees, are you okay? Ellie was also anxious, shouting, someone, quickly call the doctor. Dees lay on the floor pale, in so much pain that he lost all strength, but still said, young master, I'm fine. Then the whole person lay on the ground motionless. Ellie shouted, Dees. After lying down for a while, Dees suddenly remembered something, quickly opened her eyes, as if nothing had happened, stood up and said, young master, I have something important to discuss with you, it was Bella who asked me to pass on the message. Lu Feng responded with an O sound. Sister Bella said, they have taken in too many beastmen, there are too many people, want to ask if our western city needs people. Ellie stood beside, her face full of 3 dots, looking at Dees who was speaking with disdain, then she has already come back to life. Lu Feng pondered and asked thoughtfully, how many people are there? Dees scratched his head, not sure how many people there were. Probably around 10,000 people. I'm not sure about the details either, hee hee. Lu Feng heard this, his face lit up with joy, 10,000 beastmen. Okay, I accept, you choose a time to pick me up. Dees happily replied, really, thank you young master. But beside him, Ellie suddenly interrupted their conversation, wait. Young master, in the past, because of your steam engine, a lot of jobs were taken over by the steam engine in our western city. Moreover, now there are enough manpower in all aspects, there are basically not many job positions to arrange for those beastmen. Moreover, if we keep them idle, it will cause a lot of trouble. Dees felt that Ellie's words made sense, so he quickly said, that's right, then let's forget it. Lu Feng saw Ellie's worry and rubbed her head, saying to the two of them, you guys don't need to worry about this. If I said I would accept, then of course I have my own plan. Lu Feng walked over to the table, took the map and spread it out, telling Ellie and Dees to come over and look. Lu Feng said, just in time, also to let everyone know my upcoming plan. Ellie looked at the young master's actions suspiciously, this is, the map of the western region. Ellie looked at the map and saw that this map was different from the others. Ellie asked, there are many places that are different, young master, what are these drawings? Lu Feng explained, this is a national highway, I plan to use the national highway to connect the entire western region. This requires a large number of manpower, those beastmen just happen to be able to help me complete this plan. Ellie startled, what? Lu Feng continued, it's not that simple, the population of the western region is scattered, the layout of the cities is not reasonable. Using the national highway, I can replan this population, and quietly move them to where we want. Based on the current situation of the western region, analyze the reasonable points in the plan. Young master, such a large project, no, it is not very suitable. There are not many carriages in Hangtae Duan now, even if it is repaired, not many people will use it. Lu Feng reassured Ellie, saying, don't worry, I'm going to promote a new type of transportation tool in Xi'an City. Today is a good time, I can let everyone experience it together. Ellie wondered, a new means of transportation. But not long after, Ellie's frightened cry rang out, wah wah wah. Then Ellie fell on the ground, next to a bicycle lying around. Ellie cried and was unwilling, hateful, she had failed again. On the contrary, Mina was very good at cycling. She rode her bike to Ellie and cheered, Ellie, keep it up. Ellie saw Mina teasing her and shouted, Mina. Then Ellie saw everyone was riding a bike well, even racing each other, and she said unwillingly, damn it, how did everyone learn so quickly? Lu Feng behind him was still pouring oil and saying, it seems Ellie doesn't know how to ride a bike. Even Lu Feng was teasing him, Ellie was not willing to accept it, she insisted on getting on the bike again. She said confidently, who said that, I will immediately go show the young master. Lu Feng held the saddle from behind, helping her keep her balance. Ellie was startled and said in panic, young master. Lu Feng explained that something like a bicycle mainly requires learning how to keep balance. Once someone helps you keep it steady at first, you will learn faster. Ellie blushed, too embarrassed, she said, I don't need it. Ellie stomped on the pedals, pedaling, she didn't sit down but stood and pedaled. Her tail wagged behind her, touching Lu Feng's face, making him blush and quickly say. Ellie obediently sat down and didn't stand up. But Ellie saw that she had kicked, happily and excitedly saying, wah wah, it's moving, ha ha ha. Nicole, Mina and Flay Lai stood there with stone faces, watching this scene. Suddenly, the three of them seemed to have the same thought and simultaneously pretended not to know how to ride a bicycle, looking like they needed someone to help them. Strange, how was this bike supposed to ride? Oh, it was so difficult, Flay also wanted someone to help him. After they were tired, the four of them sat together and enjoyed the cool ice cream. Everyone was happy, Ellie said, this is really a good thing, as expected of something a young master would bring out. Mina added, that's our young master. Ellie suddenly stood up and asked Lu Feng excitedly, that's right young master, so next is producing bicycles? Lu Feng shook his head and said, not yet, the steel material in our western city is too heavy, not suitable for bicycle production, at least we have to wait for Yuffie to create a light alloy. Ellie sighed sadly, is that so? Lu Feng continued, furthermore, if we want to create bicycle wheels, we also need to wait for Leia to find new rubber. In the Forbidden Mountains, the bird warriors under Leia's command fly towards the volcano. Leia commanded everyone, pay attention to safety, don't be too distracted, act carefully. Everyone behind replied, yes. Approaching the volcano, there was a loud sound, Leia was suspicious, dragon. Everyone around was confused about this sound, what is this sound, what is it? One person spoke up, looking over there. Leia turned her head to look over, not believing her eyes. It was an incredibly magnificent city, hanging in the sky. At the western castle, a doubtful voice came out, "Young master, can this thing keep the ice from melting? The weather is still so hot today." The one who spoke was Nicole. 4 people stood around the table. On the table was a blue iron box. Yuffie stood to the side, happily smiling and saying, "Sister Nicole, rest assured, Lord Lu Feng's design, there will definitely be no problems." Lu Feng also said, "We will know soon." The clock rang. Mina held the watch and said, "Young master, it's been 3 hours." Lu Feng opened the box and called everyone over, "Hey, everyone, look." The freezer opened. Everyone was curious and surprised. Mina said, "It really didn't melt." Ellie also said, "In the end, there is no need to eat all at once." Lu Feng saw this and happily praised Yuffie. "And you, Yuffie, you've worked hard this time." Yuffie happily replied with a smile, "Hee, actually they were all designs given by Lord Lu Feng, I just did it according to his request." Suddenly Yuffie stopped, realizing something. "That's right, there was one more thing. I suddenly remembered that I still have some unfinished business. Lord Lu Feng, I'm going first, goodbye, no need to see me off." After saying that, Yuffie ran out like the wind. Lu Feng stood behind her, raising his hand to hold her back. "Hey, wait." Lu Feng was stunned, and asked the others suspiciously, what was wrong with her. Mina stood by and covered her mouth, laughing secretly. Perhaps, there were some unresolved issues that the young master was afraid of asking about. Lu Feng replied, he was wondering what kind of trouble she was in and wanted to help her. Nicole stood in front of the freezer, stared at it for a while, then asked Lu Feng. "Young master, can I use this to open an ice shop in the city? The weather is so hot, consider it a kind of welfare for the people." Lu Feng saw Nicole worrying about everyone so much, so he said, "Don't worry, I told Yuffie to do this with a good plan. Later, you bring this over there first, let the craftsman make a large quantity, later I will teach you to make some simple delicious stone dishes to sell." Nicole happily replied, "Yes, young master." On the streets of Xi'an City, the sun was shining brightly, the air was extremely hot. People walking on the street, sweat streaming down, tiredly dragging their bodies along. Just like everyone else, Fu Zi and his men went on patrol, dragging their feet heavily as they lamented to each other. "Brother Fu Zi, it's already noon, what should we eat?" Fu Zi replied, "It's so hot, I don't want to eat anything, everything I eat is hot." That said, people still have to eat. Suddenly Fu Tu heard the sound, bought two, oh my, so cool. There were a lot of people standing in front, everyone was happy, talking to each other, everyone had an ice cream in their hand. The two Fu Zi were surprised to see this scene, it was so noisy, look at what they were holding, and there was smoke coming out of their mouths, wasn't it hot? A person holding an ice cream in his hand introduced it to the two people. "Haven't you heard? This is the ice cream that the city lord just made. Just one bite is refreshing. It can be bought for 2 coins. The two people's eyes widened and their mouths were wide open in surprise. They asked, "What, ice? How can it be made in the hot weather? It can be done for 2 coins. After confirming that this was the truth, the two people ran like the wind into the store, as if they would be gone if they were a little slower. While the other two were so busy and hurried, they ran into the store. In contrast, the 2 lion sisters walked out of the store, in a very leisurely state, talking to each other. Ellie said, "I didn't expect to come to the castle and eat ice, how amazing." Elsa finished eating the ice cream and said, "This is just the first time eating it, Your Excellency Lu Feng is really amazing." Ellie finished eating and felt a little doubtful, why does the taste differ from when she ate in the castle? Ellie didn't think much, quickly pulled her sister to continue sightseeing. "Sister, let's go, let's eat while walking, there are still many places to go." Elsa was startled when she was pulled, "Be careful, she's about to fall." In another corner, 2 men stood together, their faces scowling, jealous and angry as they discussed with each other. One said, "Although 2 coins could buy 1, many people still made a profit." The other replied, "If there was a way to make some money, that would be great." Hearing this, a passerby became annoyed. He then said, speaking too lightly, "That was the technique of the city lord." Someone from behind said to the 2 men, "Just wanting to share a little, for us merchants, isn't it an easy thing? I have a plan, would you be interested?" 3 days later, at the Xi'an City office, Nicole and Ellie were reporting to Lu Feng about the business situation of Xi'an City in the past few days. Nicole said, "Young master, the general price list of the big supermarkets is out today, there is a strange place I want to report. This place shows that the price of honey in the past few days has increased by 5 times, the price is even higher than meat." Lu Feng held out his hand and said, "Let me see." Ellie wondered if it was because we recently started selling ice cream, using too much sugar and honey. Nicole shook her head and said, "I've looked it up. Although it will have an impact, the price absolutely cannot be increased to that level." Ellie said, "Then buy less. In the short term, it's okay to not use sugar or honey." Lu Feng picked up the document and said, "No, there can't be any problem with the honey supply. Ellie was confused. Young master. Lu Feng explained, we live in the castle, the food is abundant, there is no need to deliberately add sugar. But most of the people just happen to need this cheap honey to replace sugar. It provides sweetness, and is also the best comfort medicine after tiring work. Many high-calorie foods require honey. If prices continue to rise like this, some of our plans will be delayed, and prices in the city may also be disrupted. That said, Lu Feng thought in his mind, but the honey used to make ice cream is only within the normal range, why did it suddenly increase so much? From outside, someone suddenly knocked on the door. Lu Feng's subordinate entered and announced. Young master, someone is looking for you, saying they want to discuss with you something that is troubling you. Lu Feng was surprised and let out a no sound. In the West Ocean City, in the city lord's living room, a man was sitting at the table, his face leisurely and confident. Lu Feng walked over and greeted him, City Lord, I finally meet you. Lu Feng walked over, sat down across from him and said, no need to be so polite, you came to help me solve the problem I'm having trouble with. He said arrogantly, if the city lord asked so, I will also speak frankly. I've come to supply you with honey. Moreover, I guarantee that the price is cheaper than where you were 3 days ago. Lu Feng closed his eyes and asked, interesting, what do you want? The other guy curled his lips, his face sinister as he replied, the city lord is indeed a man of great deeds. I really have what I want. He said his true intention, I want to have your summer ice cream making method. Of course I know, just a little bit of honey cannot be exchanged for that precious method. So I agreed, paid an extra 1,000 gold coins as a gift to the city lord. Lu Feng pondered, holding the wine glass, said, what if I refuse? The other guy just smiled, his tone threatening as he replied, fearing that for a long time to come, the price of honey and sugar will not be able to drop, and if it is not done well, it will also affect the prices of other things. Lu Feng slammed his wine glass down on the table, his face angry, his eyes cold, he was threatening me. The other guy smiled triumphantly, City Lord, I'm just discussing with you. Lu Feng folded his arms and replied, I'm not interested. Hearing Lu Feng disagree, he left. Before leaving, he did not forget to say, I live in Xiang City, you are welcome anytime. Goodbye, City Lord. Ellie saw that he had left, her face filled with anger, saying, young master, this guy is too hateful, we will directly send someone to arrest him. Lu Feng remained calm, replying, no need to rush, I just happen to have a way to do something new, by then, he will immediately lower the price. After speaking, Lu Feng smiled, preparing for a new plan. In Taiduan City, in the agricultural area outside the city. There was a whole sugarcane field there, the sugarcane plants were growing very well, people were harvesting the sugarcane. Lu Feng and his men walked through the fields, looking around. People asked, hey, young master, what are these things, why are they so strange? Lu Feng smiled and replied, these are sugarcane, I plan to plant them here in the spring. Lu Feng touched the sugarcane stalk, thinking to himself, but, it's only been 2 to 3 months, but it's already grown this big, could this be a special place in another world? Everyone curiously touched the stalk, but their thoughts were that it was too hard. Lu Feng cut some sugarcane, peeled off the skin, gave it to everyone, and said, you can eat it, try it, but absolutely do not swallow it. Several people picked up the sugarcane, doubtful, their heads full of question marks, could it be eaten? Mina picked up the sugarcane, put it in her mouth and bit it, a stream of sweet juice flowed out from the sugarcane. Mina's eyes lit up, she exclaimed, so sweet. Ellie just finished eating and asked Lu Feng, young master, is this why you grow sugarcane? Lu Feng explained, eating it directly is one reason, mainly I intend to make sugarcane. Ellie was curious, her face surprised, cane sugar, is it different from honey? Lu Feng came to ask Ellie, when Ellie went out to buy ice cream, did she feel that the taste was different from what Nicole made? Ellie had already figured out the reason for the taste of the ice cream yesterday, saying that, in terms of taste, it was indeed not very similar. Lu Feng explained further, that was because we used processed cane sugar to make it. Ellie was surprised and looked at the sugar cane in her hand in disbelief. Could it be that these things were used to make white sugar? Mina, Flay, Lu Feng turned to call the two people, but seeing the scene before his eyes, he was also stunned. Mina was cutting sugarcane quickly, while Flay had a pile of sugarcane in his mouth. Seeing that no one was stopping, he said, Mina, put down your knife, we have to go to the guild. Mina was enthusiastically cutting sugarcane, her eyes were shining like stars, she turned around and asked, what are we going to the guild for? Making sugar, Lu Feng replied. Flay picked up the pile of sugarcane and asked, can I take some with me to eat? Lu Feng helplessly said, take it away, take it away. At the sugar mill, a plume of smoke billowed from the chimney, and the sound of hammers pounding echoed below. Lu Feng introduces everyone to the basic steps of making sugar. Making sugar is actually very simple. First you have to squeeze out all the water containing sugar from the plant. Then filter it, filter out all the impurities inside, then start cooking, cook until it thickens. After the final step, you will have blocks of sugar like this. Mina and Flay were very surprised, their eyes lit up. Wow, on the table were trays of freshly baked sugar. Each sugar cube was cut into small pieces, it had the color of honey, the smell was very fragrant, it must be very delicious. Ellie was confused, isn't this white sugar? Because the sugar at the Tanshu mansion is white sugar, but here it's brown sugar. Lu Feng touched the tray of freshly baked sugar and said, with the current technology, such high-quality white sugar cannot be made, brown sugar is enough. Ellie looked at the sugar bars, as if remembering something. This was a bit like making salt, it didn't require mineral salts, and there was no location restriction, as long as there was a place to plant it, it could be made. Then she turned to Lu Feng and suggested. Young master, I suggest raising the security level and refining process of sugar. Absolutely do not let anyone learn it. That way, if we trade with the outside world in the future, sugar will also become our important product. Lu Feng thought it made sense. Well, let's do it that way. Ellie covered her mouth with her shirt and smiled slyly. Well, when this road reaches the market, I'll see how smug those merchants are. Lu Feng called everyone, let's go back, there's still a lot of work to do. Everyone said in unison, yes, young master. Then everyone returned to the city lord's mansion. 2 days later, everyone was crowded around the price list of various foods, all of them talking excitedly. Some people said that honey was still as expensive as ever. Others were complaining that they couldn't afford it. A pack of cakes is sold for 5 dong, wasn't it 1 dong before? A person who was buying cakes shouted, why is everything so expensive? The seller immediately explained, don't you know the price of sugar and honey has increased? The buyer shouted, how come, your cakes are made from sugar and honey? The seller replied, no, because my child wants sugar. The merchants who did bad things and raised the price of sugar stood by happily watching the chaos in the city. Unexpectedly, the famous city lord Lu Feng was helpless because of the price increase of sugar and honey. After that guy finished speaking, he flattered the person next to him. He was really amazing, daring to negotiate directly with the city lord. The person who was praised was arrogant and said, you flatter me too much. As long as we continue to increase the price of honey, the city lord will definitely think of a way and conditions for us. At that time, we will definitely get the method of making ice cream. Hearing this, everyone laughed loudly and said, ha, with this sentence from you, we are relieved. Suddenly, from afar, an announcement was made, sugar is sold, the sugar shop is directly under the city lord's mansion, the price is very cheap. The merchant was surprised when he heard that, ha. At the city lord's mansion shop, a lot of people were lining up to buy sugar. Someone looked at the brown sugar, it was the first time he saw sugar, so he asked, is this sugar? The person behind him hit him, scolding, are you stupid, of course it's the city lord's new invention, sell me a block. Another person just bought it, took a bite, and exclaimed, it's so sweet, it really is sugar. Hearing that, the others started to make a fuss, I want to buy, give me 1 block, I want 3 blocks. The store staff made an announcement, don't fight, each person can only buy a maximum of 3 blocks, everyone has it. Seeing this scene, the leader couldn't help but admire Lu Feng, this city lord Lu Feng is really amazing, he can make sugar. The people behind him, their faces paled, worriedly asked, what should we do? The leader said comfortably, reduce the price of honey and sugar back to normal. The other guy still didn't understand, here, reduce it again, then we increased the price before. The leader looked at these idiots and said, otherwise, honey and sugar can no longer threaten him, at that time the only ones who will suffer the loss will be you guys. Hearing these words, everyone got angry and shouted, hateful, and quickly went to adjust the prices. The leader thought to himself, such a formidable character is almost enough to satisfy the lord's request. Then he smiled and left. At Yuffie's house, Yuffie's father just came home and shouted, Yuffie, I'm home. Father Yuffie entered the house, holding a newspaper in his hand, and informed his daughter of the news about Lu Feng. Listen to me, Lord Lu Feng is doing something big outside the city today. Yuffie in the house holding a pen writing, thinking about work, this is not good, the previous way also had problems. Yuffie was in a mess, and her father kept nagging her. A while ago, didn't you make ice? You were so good, but now you're making sugar. This is the first time your father has seen sugar other than honey. I really don't know what's going on in your head. He talked for a while but his daughter didn't say anything, so he came closer and asked, why aren't you talking, what are you thinking? Yuffie couldn't stand it anymore, pushed her father away, and said, as if about to cry, Dad, stop making noise. The father could only scratch his head, looking at his angry daughter with doubt. How strange. Before, didn't you like to hear news about Lord Lu Feng? I used to hug the book he gave me to sleep, what's wrong today? Yuffie's face turned red, she was so angry that she lost her hair. She said to her father, don't say anymore. He sighed and sadly replied to his beloved daughter, okay, don't say anymore. Her daughter is grown up, her thoughts are strange. Yuffie shouted, Father. In Yuffie's family's craft workshop, Yuffie sat in front of a pile of materials, her face wrinkled and filled with thought. How could she make the alloy that Lord Lu Feng needed? Yuffie thought about what Lu Feng said the other day: to build a flying fortress, we need an alloy that is light, strong, and sturdy enough. Yuffie picked up a piece of ore and pondered. That said, if it was made light enough, it would be very brittle. Yuffie holds another piece of ore, which, if increased in hardness, becomes very heavy. I have already done all the possible combinations. Yuffie then pulled out a chair, sat at the table, and continued to study the book Lu Feng gave her. Or negotiate with Lord Lu Feng. Lord Lu Feng will probably think of a way to deal with me. But Yuffie remembered Lord Lu Feng's expectant smile that day. Yuffie shook her head. No. Yuffie thought, I made the alloy harder or lighter, there must be some mineral that I missed. Yuffie propped her chin up, thinking about the minerals. The missing minerals. In the evening, at Yuffie's house, the door to Yuffie's father's room was opened. Yuffie tiptoed inside, her face filled with fear. Yuffie went to her father's bed, picked up the box on the bed, then closed her eyes and ran out, silently apologizing to her father. At the forge, Yuffie heated the two metals together. She thought, I've only seen this type of ore with my father. Dad said, this mineral is very hard. Just now when I picked it up, I felt that the weight is also very light. That is, just need to add asbestos to make it sticky and flexible. A little more of this, a little more of that, well, this can be added too. Yuffie worked all evening in the kiln. By the next morning, Yuffie was covered in dirt and sweat. Yuffie raised her hands, her face happy and cheerful, her voice excited. Finally, it was a success. Outside, Yuffie's father looked at his daughter jumping excitedly in the room, not resting all night. He worriedly asked, Yuffie, why are you staying up all night again? It's not good for your health. Then he opened his box, and exclaimed in surprise, Yuffie saw her father and turned to say hello, father, good morning. Suddenly, a loud father's voice rang out, my baby. Father Yuffie held his head and cried. At the city lord's mansion in Shiyang City, Lu Feng looked at the alloy on the table and said with a smile, so such a thing happened. Father Yuffie said helplessly and angrily, really, this girl didn't even tell me in advance, took it and used it herself, didn't know to save some for me. Nicole asked a little fearfully, so Uncle Eli probably wouldn't. Yuffie's father waved his hand, helplessly saying, how could that be? That girl saw me awake, then went to sleep, there was nothing I could do about her. In his mind was the scene of Yuffie still in her original state, sleeping on the floor. Lu Feng knew everything and quickly apologized, apologizing to Eli. Seeing Lu Feng apologize to him, Yuffie's father quickly waved his hand and replied, no, Lord Lu Feng's guest is already here. Although it is said to be a treasure, it is just a normal mineral of the Ali Kingdom. It is just that after a few years away from the Ali Kingdom, I have always carried it with me as a nostalgia for my homeland. But thinking back, being crafted into something useful is where minerals should belong, isn't it? Lu Feng picked up the bright white alloy and thought to himself, it turns out to be the mineral of Ali water. Mr. Eli looked at Lu Feng expectantly and asked, Sir Lu Feng, quickly see if this alloy has reached the level you want. Lu Feng said happily, okay, first is the weight. The scale shows that the iron block weighs 781 grams, while the alloy block weighs 387 grams, twice as light. Mr. Eli picked up the alloy bar and used force. The alloy bar was bent but did not break. Lu Feng evaluated and praised it. Its flexibility was not bad. Nicole worriedly said, Uncle Eli, pay attention to safety. Then Father Yuffie bent the alloy bar back to its original state. The recovery ability is also very strong, Lu Feng assessed. Then he said, Mina, hit with all your might. Mina held the knife to respond to Lu Feng, then hit towards the alloy bar. After hitting, Mina commented, too hard. Mina's strike could only leave a scratch. This alloy is too excellent. It is truly a treasure of another world. Hearing this, Father Yuffie was very proud and felt as if he had won a prize. Lord Lu Feng kept praising him, and Yuffie knew for sure that he would jump up with joy. Lu Feng called Nicole. Nicole asked Darlene to come to the castle. Nicole said yes, then ran out. Father Yuffie wondered, Lord Lu Feng, you called Miss Darlene here to trade minerals with Ali country. Lu Feng smiled and replied, that's right, Uncle Eli, we don't know much about Ali country, we need some of your intelligence later. Father Yuffie sighed and replied sadly, Lord Lu Feng, I'm afraid your plan won't work. Lu Feng exclaimed anxiously, ah. But at that moment, at Ellie's house, a loud scream echoed, and the surrounding birds flew away. Yuffie was so shocked that she ran out the door. She blamed herself for falling asleep. She clearly wanted to personally deliver the alloy to Lord Lu Feng. Having said that, Yuffie ran straight to the castle, not forgetting to blame her father as she went. Father, why didn't you wake me up? People on the road saw Yuffie shouting and running as fast as the wind, and looked at each other curiously. In the study of the city lord's mansion in Shiyang City, Lu Feng was talking with Yuffie's father about the mineral issue of the Ali country. Lu Feng's face was slightly gloomy. He asked curiously, why, could it be that this mineral is very rare? Father Yuffie shook his head and replied, no, it's just a normal mineral from the Ali country. Then he explained, but the Ali kingdom has a law that strictly prohibits the trading of these minerals. All minerals are in the hands of the nobles and royal family. Not to mention foreign countries, even the slightly poorer residents don't have these minerals. This law has been maintained for 100 years, almost no other race can trade with the Ali country. Mina asked doubtfully, why is that? Lu Feng explained his explanation, iron ore can be used to make weapons, this is a type of military resource. The Ali kingdom is like this, perhaps to guard against threats from other countries. If so, then this is troublesome. Lu Feng's mind imagined him sailing, bringing the idea of open doors and free trade everywhere, but being hindered by the Ali kingdom. And he couldn't just go to the Ali kingdom to force them to trade for minerals. Father Yuffie saw that Lu Feng looked so restless and worried. He said, but this was before I took Yuffie away, perhaps the kingdom had lifted the ban long ago. I also heard someone say before that in the chaos there were weapons made by humans that the kingdom used. Lu Feng's mind flashed with hope, his voice filled with joy as he replied, in short, it would be better to let Darlene go and see the situation first. In the future, there might be an addition to the Ali kingdom in the sea trade. Mina propped her chin on her hand and said, speaking of which, if she took a boat, she could reach the Ali kingdom. Why did Yuffie have to build a flying fortress to return? On the other hand, Yuffie had just run to the door, panting for breath, when she suddenly heard people talking about her. Yuffie stopped outside the door and eavesdropped. After Mina finished asking, Yuffie's father hesitated and didn't dare to say anything. Mina made a suspicious hum. With a bang, Lu Feng raised his hand and hit Mina on the head, stopping what Mina wanted to say. Mina screamed in pain, then listened to Lu Feng's reprimand, okay Mina, if Yuffie doesn't say anything, then don't be curious. Mina's cat ears drooped down, her face apologetic, she replied, Lu Feng continued, everyone has secrets they don't want others to know, don't they? But if Uncle Eli needs any help, just say so. I like Yuffie very much, so if she has any difficulties, I will be happy to help. Mina stood by and heard Lu Feng say he liked Yuffie, then blushed and said, young master, I. And Uncle Eli just nodded, here, okay. Yuffie heard Lu Feng say that, sat outside the door, her whole body collapsed, sobbing in grievance. After crying, Yuffie stood up, her face full of determination, ran into the room, and said tremblingly. Actually, there was nothing that couldn't be said. Everyone saw Yuffie outside and turned around, their faces filled with surprise. Did Yuffie hear everything I said? Mina looked at Yuffie in surprise, not knowing what to say. Oh, Yuffie. Yuffie entered the room and explained to everyone why she wanted to make a flying fortress. After hearing Yuffie's explanation, Mina exclaimed, what, Yuffie is the princess's daughter? Yuffie nodded, sighed and replied, yes, at that time I was also very surprised, after all I didn't know what my mother thought of my father. Yuffie's father heard his daughter say that about him, he could only scratch his head, laugh and say, haha, how to say this, hearing my daughter say that, I was also very embarrassed. Mina curiously asked about Yuffie's parents' love story, so how did the two of them meet? Yuffie's father recalls Yuffie's mother. Unlike ordinary dwarves who only like weapons, Yuffie's mother is extremely adventurous, so she often sneaks out of the palace. I was just a country blacksmith, all I wanted to do was make the best weapons in the world. In his mind, he pictured himself as a young man, spending all day in the forge like Yuffie now. But in the countryside, no one wanted weapons, just hammers, axes, knives and scissors. Until that day, a very beautiful girl came to the village. He remembered the scene when he first met Yuffie's mother, she was very radiant and beautiful and asked him, are you the best blacksmith in the village, then help me forge a set of equipment, I want to go on an adventure. He just blushed and responded. Then he continued, at that time I didn't know she was a princess, I thought she was just an adventurous girl, but her smile immediately conquered me. A lot of things happened after that, and then there was Yuffie. But the Ali royal family values bloodline very much, and absolutely will not allow Yuffie to live. That year, in order to protect Yuffie, I could only take her away from her hometown. If they knew that Yuffie was still alive, they would definitely find a way to kill Yuffie. It's just a pity for Yuffie, from childhood to adulthood, she has never met her mother once. Yuffie listened to the story, clenching her hands, her face sad, but her heart was in pain and loss. Unable to bear it any longer, Yuffie said, Lord Lu Feng, father, it's a bit stuffy in the room, I want to go out for a walk. Seeing that his daughter was strong and didn't want to cry in front of everyone, and wanted to go out to calm down, he nodded in agreement. Okay, then be careful. Lu Feng felt sad and sorry for Yuffie after hearing the story. He never expected that the two of them would experience such a thing. Father Yuffie could only sigh and say, we never mentioned it to anyone before, afraid that others would hear, this was the first time Yuffie was willing to tell anyone. Mina felt very sorry for Yuffie, and also saw that Yuffie seemed to be unwell just now, so she looked at Lu Feng and said, "Young master, can you go comfort Yuffie? I see that her complexion is not very good." Lu Feng was stunned when he heard Mina's question, and pointed at himself and asked, Mina saw that Lu Feng was still hesitating and urged him. Of course, Uncle Li said that this was the first time Yuffie was willing to tell a secret to someone else. It showed clearly that she trusted the young master in her heart. Of course she needed the young master to take action. Lu Feng hesitated, not thinking so, but Uncle Li might be better than him. Uncle Li scratched his head and replied, "Lord Lu Feng, I also feel it would be better if you go." Hearing this, Lu Feng agreed to go talk to Yuffie. He walked out onto the palace terrace and saw Yuffie staring blankly into the distance, her whole body filled with a distant sadness. Lu Feng said, "So you're here." Yuffie saw that the person who came was Lu Feng, the person Yuffie trusted, so she was very surprised and couldn't believe her eyes. She trembled and said, "Lord Lu Feng, I. Lu Feng comforted Yuffie, "Don't be shy, missing your mother is not a shameful thing." Yuffie was a little surprised when she heard that, suddenly realizing that Lu Feng had never mentioned his mother. So, Lord Lu Feng also often misses his mother? Lu Feng could only laugh when he heard that, his voice calm, I am an orphan. Yuffie's mouth responded faster than her brain, so it turns out that Lord Lu Feng doesn't have a mother. Lu Feng's face darkened when he heard that, and he said bitterly, how could her words hurt people so much? Regardless of what Lu Feng said, Yuffie was curious. "That's right, Lord Lu Feng, do you have something to say to me?" Lu Feng now got to the point, I came here to say something to you." Then Lu Feng knelt down. His vision was facing Yuffie. He reached out and stroked Yuffie's head, gently saying, "I'm like you, I've never met my mother, and I don't know if she's still alive. But if possible, I really want to meet her once, so I understand how you feel, Yuffie." Yuffie felt a warmth envelop her, erasing all her doubts and suspicions towards her mother. Lu Feng beckoned to Yuffie, I promise you, your wish, I will definitely help you fulfill it." A warm and happy atmosphere enveloped the two of them. Xi'an City, a year ago, this place was just a small city in the inner city of Yinglu. It was a desolate and poor city, the people lived in misery and poverty. Since the arrival of the city Lord Lu Feng, it has only been a year. The feud between humans and beastmen has been resolved. After that, the cultivation of food, trade, and military have all become countless times stronger than before. Xi'an City has become a prosperous city, with ships coming and going everywhere, and the people living in comfort and happiness. He also invented the way to make ice in summer. This city Lord Lu Feng is really formidable. It turns out that the person who spoke was the one who raised the price of honey the other day to threaten Lu Feng. He was holding an ice cream cone, his blood-red eyes shining with appreciation. What a special pair of eyes. He walked on the streets of Xi'an City, eating while thinking, but where did such a formidable character come from? Never heard of him before. Should he write it down, unable to find out clearly, and send it back? Suddenly, a crowd gathered in front of the man. In the center of the crowd, two people were fighting. One person grabbed the other by the neck and shouted, "What did you say?" The other person stubbornly said, "I said it." The beast continued, "Oh, humans are really stubborn." The other person still refused to admit it, "It was you who caused this." The red-eyed man saw this scene and was full of beastly thoughts. Then he went closer to see, heard people around him talking. "What's going on?" one person asked. Another person replied, discussing which is better, sweet buns or spicy buns, and argued. The other person heard that and was suspicious, so boring, why are they fighting over just this? The red-eyed man felt that recently, there were a lot of these trivial matters. But over there, the two people were still arguing and fighting. I'll say it again, sweet is the best in the world, bullshit, spicy is the truth. The red-eyed man's eyes stopped at a person in white not far away. Doubt, that is, Bishop Parkin. In the western city, near the harbor, the Parkin patriarch and the red-eyed man met. Cardinal Parkin's voice was filled with surprise. He didn't expect that in a foreign country, he would meet an acquaintance, Count Robin. It turned out that the red-eyed man was Count Robin. Seeing his surprise, Count Robin's face remained cold as he calmly replied, "So things like fate are just that magical?" Patriarch Parkin's voice lowered as he questioned, "But, Count Robin, it's not appropriate for you to leave the Yadian kingdom. Her Majesty the Queen has not been on the throne for long and is inexperienced. Without your help, I'm afraid many things won't be handled well." Count Robin heard this sarcasm but remained calm as if he did not respond. Archbishop Parkin was kind, but Her Majesty the Queen was young and talented, and could have taken care of herself long ago. "All right, I heard that the Archbishop has been sleeping more and more lately, and he is getting old, so he must pay attention to his health." Bishop Parkin's face darkened. Count Robin took out a bun from his pocket, took a bite, and snorted with a slightly displeased expression. Archbishop Parkin continued to speak deliberately. Even though Her Majesty the Queen was young and talented, what she wanted to do was still a bit too much. Anything too much would be counterproductive. Be careful not to bring fire to yourself. Hearing the threat but showing concern for the Queen, Count Robin ignored it. We will consider this ourselves, there is no need for Bishop Parkin to worry. Seeing that Count Robin was indifferent, he turned around and left. Before leaving, he did not forget to say, I would like to remind you, Count Robin, humans also have limits, only God can guide us further. You are a rare talent, so I am telling you these things. Robin looked at Bishop Parkin with cold eyes. The priest said, I am everywhere, I know everything, rich or poor, noble or not. You and I are just the chosen ones. Sometimes you have to think more about yourself. Count Robin probably understands this better than me. Count Robin squeezed the bun tightly and laughed loudly, so it turns out Bishop Parkin wants to bribe me. Bishop Parkin was startled, he smiled, and waved his hand. No, it's just cooperation. Count Robin picked up another dumpling and put it in his mouth, doubtful, cooperative. The mysterious Patriarch Parkin said, Yad, the senior patriarch, the new patriarch will be chosen from one of the 4 patriarchs. Now as long as I succeed, conveying the will of the gods in the Western City, it will be a great achievement. At that time, the position of patriarch will definitely belong to me. Count Robin realized his true purpose, when he wanted to bribe me, but the mission needed a large amount of money, so he wanted to find me. Seeing that Robin knew his purpose, he didn't hide anything anymore and asked for money. I believe that this is just a small matter for the rich Count Robin. When I become the Archbishop, and you have the trust of Her Majesty the Queen, no matter what the future holds, you can sleep soundly. Even if you want that young queen, it's not impossible. Hearing this, Robin's face darkened, interrupting Archbishop Parkin. Enough, Archbishop Parkin, I swear allegiance to the Queen, Archbishop Parkin. Also, I'll give you one more piece of advice, this isn't Yadian, if anything happens, your god won't come to save you. Cardinal Parkin ignored the advice and said, there's no need for you to bother about this, Count Robin. In the City Lord's room, Xiang City, Lu Feng was reading a report, his expression serious, his brows furrowed. Ellie stood beside him, looking at Lu Feng's tense expression, and asked, what happened, young master? Lu Feng replied, during this period of time, why are there so many conflicts among the city's residents? Moreover, most of them are caused by human or beasts, not so peaceful. Ellie took the document and saw the problems, it was a bit strange, I also encountered it on the road recently. Nina gave some reasons, was it because there were too many people? Lu Feng did not think so, that was not right, the current welfare system of Xiang City, there should not be so many conflicts. Then Lu Feng ordered, Mina, you take people to investigate this matter. Mina nodded, okay, young master. Then Mina asked, young master, how should we investigate that? Lu Feng replied, you check first, is there anyone suspicious, often appearing in the center of many beastmen, I suspect that someone is secretly playing tricks behind it, then Mina went out to investigate. In the evening, in Taeduong City, everyone had gone to rest long ago, but there were some people who did not. On the main road, 2 shady beastmen approached a house. One looked around, and the other knocked on the door. A face looked out from inside, through the opening in the door. After confirming who it was, he opened the door, the 2 men quickly entered, and then closed the door. In the dark, under the flickering candlelight, a voice rang out, gods are everywhere. The master of the gods, accepting all things, tolerant of all. Inside the house, many orcs were kneeling, and above them stood the satisfied Parkin, who was being worshipped by everyone. The room was surrounded by candles or electric lights, but here there were only a few flickering candles, creating a mysterious scene. Archbishop Parkin stood above, his voice mysterious as he said, as long as you believe in the master, you will get everything you want. The crowd kneeling in front spoke in unison, thanking the god for giving us illness. In the eyes of the ignorant people, brainwashed by the Parkin sect master was like a god, a messenger of gods, his whole person was shining like stars, like a god. They believed that what the sect master said was what the gods had conveyed, so they believed it all. They continued to clasp their hands, then raised their hands high, and said in unison, we are willing to dedicate everything we have. Seeing that the orcs were so easily fooled, Bishop Parkin thought to himself, orcs are really orcs, their intelligence is too low. Suddenly a child raised his hand, Master, you said that gods are everywhere, but why have I never met you? The sect master saw that someone asked this, and said a bland sentence, the human beast was confused. The others heard the boy say this, and they were angry and scolded. What do you mean? You mean you don't believe in the existence of a god in the world? You are so bold. The person who just asked saw everyone so aggressive, and replied fearfully, no, it's just me. Everyone became even more agitated. One person said, what else is there to say, what else do you want to explain? I see you don't believe in the spell of the Lord. Another person said, tell him to get out, expel him from the school. Another person interrupted, I want to see the Master God, The Master God is in the heavenly kingdom, in charge of everything, do you have time to see me? The group of people with murderous faces surrounding the beastman asked back. Seeing things getting out of control, Bishop Parkin acted holy and stopped them. Okay, everyone, let's stop here. It's normal to be suspicious. Then he cunningly said, this is the test that the God Lord has given you. When you pass the test, when you truly believe in the God Lord, you will receive the God Lord's favor. The other person heard this and believed without a doubt. Yes, Lord Parkin, I will definitely pass the test. I believe in the spell without reservation. The beastman's face was a little hesitant before, but after hearing what he said, he believed him completely. After successfully turning black into white, Parkin nodded and said, I will wait, thank you, God. Then he patted the head of the beastman who had just spoken. The others bowed their heads even more respectfully, thanking the god. He lowered his head, his eyes narrowed, full of danger, and said with a sly smile, believe that the God will one day give you eternal life, bring you from the human world to the heavenly kingdom, and enjoy happiness forever. And he couldn't help but think to himself, as expected, humans and beasts are stupid. Before that, the guards led by Mina had already broken into this place a long time ago, witnessing everything that had happened since then. Mina and everyone stood up. Mina coldly interrupted the ceremony, saying, you must come with me for a trip. Parkin sect master and everyone below were startled. They raised their heads in confusion. The city guard. Seeing the city lord's guards jumping down from above to capture people, the sect leader was angry and coldly snorted. He turned to the group of beastmen he was preaching to and ordered, everyone, don't panic, protect me. Don't forget to preach, it's all up to the Godmaster. This is the test the Godmaster has for you. I will lead you back to the kingdom of gods. The guards saw that Bishop Parkin wanted to run, so they rushed towards him and stopped. The orcs lost all reason. Hearing what the sect master said, they quickly stood in front of him to protect him. Don't even think about harming Lord Parkin. Sect Master Parkin, come this way. Then lead the way for the priest to run away. Everyone below simultaneously raised their hands to both sides, saying in unison, do not come near Lord Parkin, be honest, otherwise I will not be polite. People without faith, don't stop me from pursuing my faith. Mina trembled with anger when she heard these words, her fists clenched. In the face of these words coming from these ignorant beastmen, kill them, this is our test, kill them, we can go to the heavenly kingdom for eternal life. Suddenly Bishop Parkin realized something was approaching. He turned around in horror. A foot flew at a terrifying speed. With a bang, Mina swung her foot and kicked him in the face. He was sent flying several meters away, his teeth and gums mixed together. His whole body lay flat on the ground, covered with injuries, groaning in pain. Mina walked up to where he had fallen, stomped her foot on his chest, and declared, you are under arrest, Parkin. Faced with his pale face and trembling with fear, Mina threatened, I still have something to ask, you better be obedient. At the city lord's study, Mina gave a detailed report on the recent incident. Young master, she had asked everything. Lu Feng was surprised, just yesterday, but today he was able to question like this, doubt, so quickly. Mina was flattered when she was praised, her tail was raised, she wagged back and forth, confidently replied, humph, there's nothing I can't ask. Lu Feng saw Mina's confident demeanor, he could only smile wryly, not knowing what to say, right. Lu Feng held the paper and opened it, his eyes widening in surprise, Inside is a line of words, the divine light will soon descend upon the Western Ocean City. In the Yadian Kingdom, the temple of the chief god. The leader sat on the platform, with many people kneeling below. The room was decorated very lavishly and magnificently. The entire room emitted a golden light, like a fairyland. The man sitting on the high platform, wearing a ring on his hand, placed the letter on the table. Then he told the person kneeling below, summoning the Carol sect master, telling him to lead his team to the Western Ocean City, to help the Parkin sect master spread the religion. The white-clothed person kneeling below clasped his hands in acceptance, carefully obeying the divine command. The old man with a silver hair and an old face snorted coldly, Western City, humph, he picked up a cup and looked at the pile of things beside him. He couldn't help but feel happy. Parkin, he really found a good city. On the table were Western City items, including canned goods, wine, and specialties. A new day has come, the bird tribe, led by Leia, after a period of time on a mission, also returned. Leia landed and entered the study, Ellie happily announced. Young master, Leia is back. Lu Feng smiled and looked at Leia and said, Leia, you've worked hard. Leia had a somewhat straightforward personality and coldly replied, I just did the work as agreed, there was nothing difficult or not. Saying that, Leia hugged the giant bag and placed it heavily on Lu Feng's table. Take a look and see if there's anything you want. The bag was opened, countless minerals and other things like seeds, sticks, firewood, were spread all over the table, all kinds of colors yellow, green, black, purple. Ellie looked at it and was dazzled, she couldn't help but be surprised. Wow, so many. Leia immediately explained, her young master said I should bring back everything I don't know, there's so much of it. Suddenly, Lu Feng discovered something. He reached out and picked up a green leaf branch. It was really found. Lu Feng then asked, Leia, is there any liquid from this plant? Leia heard that and took out a bottle containing some kind of liquid. She said, you said to collect some when you find the plant. I took some. Lu Feng poured a little solution onto his fingertip to try it. He felt that the color, smell, and feel were not wrong. The Lord of Xi'an City no longer cared about his image. Lu Feng held the bottle with both hands and said with excitement in his eyes, this was natural rubber. Having said that, he turned around and took Leia's hand, shaking it up and down, constantly praising her. Leia, well done, having you is really too convenient. Being praised, Leia felt a little embarrassed, but her expression still showed that she didn't care. Why did you suddenly praise me? My skin was covered in goosebumps. Lu Feng didn't pay any attention to her words just now, still happily replied, his emotions bursting out. After all, she really did a great job. Moreover, she really helped me a lot. Leia's face became redder and redder, and in the end she had no choice but to say something evasive. Okay, stop talking. Anyway, these are the things you need, right? Can you see what the other things are? It won't be easy to bring them back. Lu Feng heard this and looked back at the things on the table. He picked up a yellow mineral and began to spread knowledge. This is the sulfur I mentioned before. Our Xi'an City's secret weapon completely relies on it. Lu Feng then pointed to another jade green stone. This one was a jadeite or a collectible mineral. He didn't say more but thought to himself, if he found a mineral mine, the jadeite that could be mined could be brought back to Earth to sell, and then, he could buy quite a few things. Ellie pointed at some kind of black seed and asked, what about this one? It's so black, I wonder if it's edible. Lu Feng heard Ellie say that, and also turned to look. He was a bit confused. This one, I can't see it either. Lu Feng picked up the strange seed and looked at it carefully, placing his hand on his chin in thought. It looked like a pine cone, but this thing felt a bit soft to the touch. After looking at it for a while, Lu Feng brought the fruit up to his nose to taste. This smell, why does it feel like he's known it before? Leia looked at Lu Feng holding the fruit, seemingly thinking he was about to eat it, then shouted to stop him. Lu Feng, this cannot be eaten. She recounted that at that time, after I ate one, I threw it into the fire. As a result, the fire got bigger and almost burned someone else's wing. After hearing the story, Ellie was a bit scared. She said, it's too dangerous. However, Lu Feng seemed to realize something when he heard about fire. He thought for a moment and then told Ellie, bring a fire pot over. Ellie didn't understand anything, but quickly responded, okay. Ellie brought over the fire basin and placed it in the middle of an empty space in the room. Lu Feng thought of Leia's words just now and repeated them. According to Leia, this thing could enhance the fire. He thought to himself, so this fruit's ingredients might contain a fire retardant or something. As if to confirm his thoughts, Lu Feng calmly threw down the 2 fruits he was holding. As soon as it was thrown in, the fire in the tub immediately flared up, causing both Lu Feng and Ellie to be startled. Ellie screamed, she had to jump back or her beautiful tail would become fuel for the fire. After calming down for a while, Lu Feng smiled and thought to himself, this is a new type of energy that can be utilized. This other world is indeed full of treasures. Scouting the Yukam Sun Mach was indeed the right choice. After thinking for a while, Lu Feng turned to Ellie and said, Ellie, give instructions below. I need people to enter the Yukam mountain range, mainly to surround the terrain of this fruit. There is also rubber and sulfur, in charge of planning and construction of the road. Later when we develop the Yukam mountain range, we will use the materials provided by them. Ellie listened to him, did not ask anything more and immediately replied, yes, young master. Then she made a suggestion, if that was the case, why not let Avery go? She often went exploring alone before. What the teacher said made sense. Lu Feng quickly agreed, she could just arrange this. Ellie heard that and immediately left the letter. Leia suddenly remembered something. She turned around and said, that's right, Lu Feng, I have something else to tell you. This time when I went to the Yukam mountain range, I saw the Heavenly Kingdom. Lu Feng exclaimed in surprise, what? Leia recalled the scene she saw at that time. It was a castle covered in clouds, but no matter how she looked at it, it felt like an illusion. So at that time, we planned to get a little closer, but strangely, after we got closer, we discovered that the heavenly god had disappeared. Lu Feng silently affirmed in his mind, it was probably some kind of illusion, but he did not say this thought out loud, then asked, what did that heavenly god look like? Hearing Lu Feng ask that, Leia raised her hand to try to remember. This, I see a lot of buildings, a lot of trees, oh right, there is also a stream. Lu Feng heard her description and asked again, were there mountains? Leia was quite surprised when she heard that. How did he know? Could it be that he had been to the Heavenly Kingdom? Suddenly a thought flashed through Leia's mind. She felt like she had discovered something. Her face paled slightly as she imagined. Wait, maybe Lu Feng was a person from the Heavenly Kingdom. Lu Feng could guess what she was thinking by looking at her expression. He waved his hand. His face was 3 parts confused and 7 parts helpless as he advised her, stop your imagination. After talking about this for a while, there was no result. Lu Feng directly stopped caring. He said to Leia, "Whatever heavenly god, just leave it aside. I have something to give you." Hearing this, Leia couldn't help but ask curiously, "What is it?" Lu Feng immediately replied, "This is the weapon I promised you before, I designed it." Yuffie used a new alloy to craft it. In Leia's hand now was a giant, shiny black crossbow. Leia held this object in her hand and couldn't help but be surprised. It was so light, yet it was clearly so big. Lu Feng also reminded her that its power is very strong, so she must be careful when using it. Leia was still staring at the thing in her hand. She asked as she looked, "What is its name?" Lu Feng rubbed his chin and thought for a while before saying a name, Sky Wisdom Staff. After hearing the name of the weapon, Leia did not stop. She was somewhat concerned about the price, so she continued to ask, "This weapon must not be cheap, are you just going to give it to me like that?" Lu Feng heard that and waved his hand and smiled comfortingly, "We are all family, what is there to worry about?" A very simple reason was answered by Lu Feng, but in Leia's ears it was a different story. She immediately blushed, shy but also somewhat angry as she shouted, "Who is family to him?" However, that was all. After Leia finished speaking, she walked out the door and prepared to leave. Before that, she stopped and said, "In short, thank you, I will repay this favor." Lu Feng looked in the direction she left and heard what Leia just said, his face gently smiling. In front of the city gate, Princess Lucy and Lu Feng were standing and talking. Joan stood in front of the princess and reluctantly reminded her, "Your Highness Lucy, I have something to say before I leave. I won't be around for a while." "You must be careful," Princess Lucy smiled to reassure Jones and replied, "I know." Then Jones added, "Don't go anywhere alone, absolutely do not go to dangerous places with few people." The people standing behind watching the two princesses and Jones were Lu Feng, Ellie and Avery. Lu Feng asked, "Did Ellie also arrange for Jones to come along?" Ellie immediately replied, "When I went to find Avery, I just ran into Lucy." Hearing about this, she suggested letting Jones come along. Ellie glanced at Avery and continued, "I also didn't feel comfortable letting Avery go alone, so I agreed." Avery stood next to Ellie, looking indifferent and honestly said, "Actually, I can go alone." Back to Jones, the reminder to the little princess continued, "Don't stay up late reading at night, don't say anything about having a good feeling at night, wake up early in the morning, don't sleep until noon." Princess Lucy felt embarrassed after listening, her face turned red and she shouted to stop Jones from continuing to nag, "Don't say anything more." Suddenly, a hand grabbed Jones' collar and pulled him back, causing Jones to jump a little. Avery grabbed Jones and threw her over his shoulder, walking straight ahead. She said, "Okay, let's go." Jones struggled desperately but it was useless. He could only scream loudly. Avery let go. I hadn't finished speaking yet. After calming Jones down, Avery turned back to say goodbye. "Princess, Lord Lu Feng, I'm leaving." Ellie waved from afar and shouted, "Be careful on the road and return safely." The sky was clear blue, the sunlight was shining brightly on the road, and the group of people and horses led by Avery set off. Jones rode right behind Avery, sighing a little worriedly. She turned her head back and looked back, wondering if Princess Lucy was taking good care of herself. Jones was a little curious. He looked up and asked the person walking in front of him, "Avery?" She didn't seem worried at all. Hearing that, Avery replied with an unconcerned expression, "Why should she worry? With Lu Feng protecting her, she's very safe." "I understand, my princess. Now that she has found her goal, her future will only get higher and higher. Maybe one day she will complete something that she didn't dare to think of before. She is no longer the little princess that needs my protection. I have to change position to serve her." Speaking up to here, Avery raised her head slightly, her expression hard to see any emotion. She admitted, "I had wanted to go out and explore before, just having this opportunity, maybe it will help me find my own future path." After hearing Avery's confession, Jones didn't know what he was thinking, he just replied with an ah. The sun rose higher and higher, while below the group of people continued to move forward. The scene changed to a vast sea. On a drifting boat, a loud cry rang out. "Ah, vast sea, full of water." On the deck of the ship were Miss Darlene and the bird girl Mira. Mira was now leaning against the side of the boat, the corners of her mouth curled up in complaint, "How boring." Darlene saw this. She took an apple from the basket, stuffed it into Mira's mouth and said with a smile, "Stop complaining, eat fruit, you have to eat a lot of fruit when going on a boat." Lelise came over from somewhere and added, "The boat ride is even more boring than I imagined." Darlene's mouth twitched slightly when she heard that, and she sincerely reminded them that it would be better to pray that there wouldn't be any excitement. Perhaps unable to bear this boredom, Mira suddenly shouted loudly, "AAA, no, I can't stand it." After shouting, she immediately spread her wings and flew high. "I went out and flew for a while." Darlene saw that but couldn't stop it in time, so she could only shout loudly to tell him not to fly far away, and to remember to come back for dinner. Mira was flying high in the sky, suddenly saw something in front. She loudly announced, "Wait, I see the Ali royal capital." The ship advanced towards the dwarf port, a loud shout rang out, lowered the sails, and dropped anchor. Down at the port a man named Muller shouted loudly, "People on the boat, got off the boat to check." Mira had now landed back on the boat. She raised her hand over her forehead, blocking the light to see better. There were indeed a lot of dwarves. Darlene stood next to her and added, this was the Dwarven Kingdom after all. Only then did Lelisa speak up and ask, "Darlene, Uncle Ely said that dwarves are very stubborn. Have you thought carefully about how to convince them later?" Darlene immediately smiled, raised 3 fingers to signal that it was okay, reassured, "Just watch me." At this time, below the port, a number of dwarves had gathered. Some of them kept exclaiming, "Wow, what a big ship, have you guys ever seen such a big ship?" The dwarves beside the person who just asked replied, "Never, never." A reddish brown-haired dwarf stood with his hands on his hips and asked Muller, "My lord, this boat is not simple. It must be an envoy from some country." Muller was still looking up at the boat, and he quickly replied, telling the people below to pay attention later. "If you don't understand the opponent's strength, don't cause conflict. If not, just follow the old rules and chase them away." The person who just asked immediately obeyed. Miss Darlene slowly stepped down from the boat. She calmly introduced, "Sir Knight, we are merchants from Englu. We are here to discuss business." Muller heard her and asked doubtfully, "Business? What business?" Darlene was about to reply, and had only said a few words when a servant behind her who was carrying a box of something slipped and fell. The wooden crate flew along with it. A glass bottle inside flew down to Darlene's feet, shattering, and the contents of the bottle were also thrown up. Darlene was somewhat frightened and screamed. A scent wafted out. Muller sniffed it and realized it was the smell of alcohol. The servant who had just slipped and fell hurriedly ran down, immediately bowing and apologizing. Sorry, are you all okay?" Miss Darlene couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Muller didn't scold him, just raised his hand and waved it a few times. It's okay. He looked at the pile of broken wine, a bit regretful. Everyone's wine was so fragrant, it was such a waste to break it like that. Hearing that, Darlene took the opportunity to hold another glass bottle of wine and introduce it with a smile. "Ha, actually we are wine merchants, even Ali only wants to sell the products we make." Then she gave the bottle of wine to Muller and said, "A bottle of wine," still hoping the knight would accept it. "If it's good, remember to support our business." Muller took the bottle of wine, smiled thoughtfully, "Selling wine, okay, put it in." Darlene seemed to have achieved her intention. She happily replied, "Thank you, sir." Miss Darlene's group was now led into the capital square of the Ali Kingdom, Tati. The crowd was bustling. In the middle of the square were tables with all kinds of goods on them. The guide introduced the group as he walked. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the western city of our Ali Kingdom. Anyone who wants to sell anything can leave their goods here." Darlene looked around and felt that it looked very good. But Mira looked uninterested. She pouted and compared. It was completely incomparable to the large square in Xiyang City. Lelisa didn't think so. She told Mira she was wrong to use the large square to compare. Darlene then waved Mira over and said, "Mira, come here and help." Mira didn't understand anything but went over anyway. A moment later, Darlene asked for something, and saw Mira spread her wings and fly away. The wind from Mira's wings was very strong, causing everything around to be blown away. The people around couldn't help but be affected. Many people even shouted vaguely asking, "What's going on?" Someone pointed to the sky and asked, "What is that?" The surrounding dwarves then also looked up to the sky, seeing Mira flying above it. Another person answered, "Beastman, a rare bird beastman." Hearing this, some of the others exclaimed, "This is the first time I've seen a bird. Why is she flying so high?" Mira, who was up high, saw everyone pointing at her and praising her. She couldn't help but blush in embarrassment. However, she still had to carry out her assigned task. She let down a long red banner from above, with a prominent golden line written on it, "Limited edition fine wine from Xiyang City, starting price 50 gold coins, guaranteed duration divine wine." The people below couldn't help but be surprised. Fine wine, so it was selling wine. The person next to him read it and frowned. 50 gold coins, why not go rob it? As soon as he finished speaking, a strong scent was transmitted. The blonde-haired man with a yellow beard smelled it and his eyes widened in surprise. It smelled so good. Everyone looked towards the direction the scent appeared. Someone shouted, "Flying over from there." Others couldn't help but wonder, this wine scent is so domineering. Where is Taeduong City? Darlene had already displayed all the wines on the table. She spread her arms to both sides as if inviting everyone to come and enjoy. Seeing everyone's attitude, she knew her plan was successful. She smiled and said to herself, the effect is not bad." Mira at this time, still holding the banner high up, still embarrassed, said, "So embarrassing." Below Darlene's stall, a crowd had gathered, attracted by the scent. Some people even asked, "Miss, can you sell this wine for a little cheaper?" But Darlene answered very firmly, not haggling. Meanwhile, at the Duke's mansion, Muller held a bottle of wine and poured it into a glass for the person in front of him, saying, "Father, this is the wine that a merchant from another city gave to him today. Please try it." The person Muller called father also held up a glass of wine, waiting to be filled. As soon as he smelled it, he exclaimed in praise, "This wine is so fragrant." He picked up the glass of wine and took a sip. Suddenly, his eyes opened wide. He couldn't help but feel like he was galloping on a horse with a knife in his hand. Father Muller slammed the cup down on the table, making a loud bang. His face turned red from the alcohol, and he laughed loudly, praising the wine. He excitedly leaned closer to his son and urged, "Quick, contact that wine merchant, this wine, we'll buy it." Muller probably hadn't tried it yet, so he didn't know why his father was in such a hurry. He calmly replied, "I'll arrange for someone to follow them, they're selling in 11 sure right now." "Then why aren't you going quickly?" Muller quickly followed his father's words and left. Outside the door, a horse-carrying servant was waiting. The man greeted him. "Young master," Muller did not say much, quickly urged, and set off, heading to 11 sure. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Muller." Hearing the call, I turned around to see who it was. Oh, Princess Daisy. The girl appeared in a pink dress, her whole body exuding a gorgeous and beautiful aura. She was the princess of the Ali Kingdom, Daisy. Muller turned back to greet her. "Princess, you're here." The little princess sighed and replied, "Oh dear, the palace is so boring. Father is discussing business with humans, it's not fun, so I went out to find you." Princess Daisy continued to lean closer to Muller and asked, "Just now everyone was talking about 11 sure, you've never been there before, did something good happen?" Muller heard the princess's question, his eyes evaded, he scratched his cheek with his finger, and stammered, This I don't know either." The princess did not get the answer she wanted, her eyes full of probing glances. Muller continued to hide, even though his face was covered in cold sweat, he still did not dare to look straight at the princess, he smiled casually and covered up. "Ha ha ha, how strange, why did I come to 11 sure?" The princess did not continue to probe, and immediately suggested, "I also want to go to 11 sure." Muller heard this and worriedly advised, "This is not good, princess, that is where the poor people go." Princess Daisy looked indifferent, "I don't care, I have to go today." In the end, Muller had no choice but to compromise, taking the princess to 11 sure and telling her everything. The two of them went to 11 sure, and among the people passing by, the princess turned to ask again, "Was there really such wine as he said?" Muller immediately admitted, "Yes, my old man said it tasted very good." Hearing this, Princess Daisy couldn't help but be excited. If Duke Moose also found it delicious, then it must be good wine. That's great. I'll buy it for my father. He'll definitely be very happy. Muller looked at her like that, his expression was 3 parts helpless, 7 parts also 3 parts as he replied, "Yes, yes." But in his mind, he couldn't help but feel sad for his father. "Father, it seems like you can't drink anymore." The two looked at Darlene's stall in front, there were still many people surrounding it, a few people at the front exclaimed, "Ah, it smells so good, but it's too expensive, can't afford it at all." Muller shouted from behind the crowd, standing far away, "Miss Darlene." Hearing the call, Darlene immediately paid attention. She quickly walked over. In the crowd, the blonde old man shouted, "That's it. Your Highness the Princess." The people around immediately turned around, they quickly dispersed to both sides, someone who intentionally pushed in was immediately held back. Get out of the way, don't push in the Highness the Princess." Muller led Princess Daisy in front of Darlene and introduced, "Darlene, this is our princess, Daisy." Hearing this, Darlene immediately lifted her skirt and bowed to greet His Highness. Princess Daisy smiled and waved her hand, "No need to be polite, no need to be polite." The little princess didn't beat around the bush and asked directly, "Miss Darlene, I heard you have good wine. Can I try it?" Darlene smiled back, "Of course, it was my honor." Meanwhile, in the dwarf palace, the atmosphere seemed tense, a threatening voice rang out, "Still not finished thinking." The man wearing a crown, indifferently holding a glass of water, his expression unclear, continued, "I just want that iron ore." He continued to twirl the glass of water in his hand, his voice full of meaning, "Right now, in the chaos of the kingdom, I still have enough wheat to trade with Ali. Don't you want this wheat to last through this winter? Or has your Ali Ironland already planted wheat?" The man who was speaking was the king of the Manor Principality, a chaotic place named Mark. His face revealed a dictatorial expression, calling out to the person holding a glass of water in his hand in front of him, His Highness Robertson. Back in the hustle and bustle of Tay Street, a familiar voice rang out, "Delicious, good wine." After tasting the wine, Princess Daisy did not hesitate to ask, "Miss Darlene, how do you plan to sell this wine?" Darlene held up the bottle of white wine with both hands and happily introduced it. This was only the lowest grade wine in our western city. If your Highness Daisy wanted to buy it, I would recommend another type. Having said that, Darlene picked up another bottle of wine and said, "Yukuk Daha, a special fine wine of Taeduong City." Hearing the word special, Princess Daisy's eyes immediately lit up, affirming that if it was better than the previous one, she would buy it no matter how much it cost. But after hearing the princess say that, Darlene hesitated, Actually we don't intend to sell it." The princess was surprised to hear that, she asked, "Huh, so what are you guys going to do?" Just waiting for this question, Darlene immediately bowed low, looked at the princess from a closer distance and replied, "We want to use the great river of Yukuk to make a long-term deal with your country." Darlene leaned down lower, whispered close to the princess's ear, for example. The princess was startled when she heard what Darlene had just said in her ear. What kind of iron ore? Her expression immediately changed. She turned back to Muller and ordered, "Muller, let's go." Our Muller didn't understand what was going on. His voice was a bit suspicious as he called the princess. Darlene saw this and sighed. What a pity. She bowed her head and pretended to say goodbye, but she deliberately stated her purpose. I originally intended to talk to Princess Daisy about how to solve the financial problem of the Ali Kingdom. Princess Daisy was about to turn around and leave, but when she heard Darlene say that, she couldn't help but wonder what she said. Darlene remained calm. She made a suggestion. If Princess Daisy was interested, we could change to another place to talk in more detail. Daisy hesitated a little, but finally agreed. In a house in the Ali Kingdom, Princess Daisy had a serious expression, crossed her arms in front of her chest and asked, "Go ahead." Darlene heard this and very slowly analyzed, "Please forgive me for being so rash. Your Highness Daisy, the Ali Dwarf Kingdom. Although it holds a large amount of iron resources, it exports very little to other countries. Most of it is used domestically, right?" Princess Daisy answered frankly, "That's true, but in order to protect the country, we have to follow that basic national policy. Iron is needed to make weapons, which will cause chaos, but as long as we have enough weapons, we will be safe." Darlene heard this reason. She did not mention much, only pointed out the weakness of the problem, but that was also equivalent to missing out on many opportunities. Although the Ali Kingdom has a lot of iron, as far as I know, the people here are completely incapable of producing the necessities of life, and basically rely on imports. Hearing these words, Princess Daisy couldn't help but frown a little uncomfortably, and asked again doubtfully. "So," Darlene answered while playing with the gold coin, "a smart person told me, defeating a country, actually, does not necessarily require soldiers. Once civilization develops to a certain level, weapons can only be used to protect oneself, and money becomes the sharp tip of a knife. If all of a country's products must be imported, and the only thing that can be exported is banned, how can that country make money under such circumstances?" Princess Daisy heard this question, her hand tightening on her skirt. She replied, "This, father has not told me." Darlene was not surprised at all. She immediately explained the problem to Daisy. Princess Daisy, as she said, the reason why Ali did not sell iron was because she was worried that other countries would invade her country after they had strong troops, or that having too many weapons would cause chaos. But what if, the Lord behind me, someone who can satisfy all the needs of the kingdom? This way it won't cause chaos, and we won't pose any threat in a place far away from your country, right? Hearing this, Princess Daisy asked with some doubt, "Can one person satisfy all the needs of the kingdom?" To gain the princess's trust, Darlene made a suggestion. If Her Highness Daisy didn't believe her, they could go together to see for themselves. Princess Daisy hesitated and did not reply. After a while, she stood up and prepared to leave, but not before looking at Darlene and said, "I will report your proposal to father. As for the outcome, I cannot help." Darlene had explained everything clearly, so Princess Daisy felt somewhat reassured and replied, "Thank you, Your Highness." Then Darlene had someone bring a large box to the princess and said, "In this box are all the goods that our western city can provide, as gifts. I hope Your Highness can bring them to the king." Back at the Ali Kingdom Palace, the sunlight shining on each white castle looked dazzling, but the atmosphere in the majestic castle was a bit quiet. The king of the Ali Kingdom, Robertson, held a glass of wine in his hand and sighed, recalling the negotiations just now. King Mark said, Tomorrow I hope Your Majesty can give us an answer that we both like." King Ali said with a sad face, "If not, it is difficult to say whether the kingdom can get through this winter. Geographically, the Manor Kingdom and the Ali Kingdom are right next to each other. If the Manor Kingdom becomes stronger and then annexes both countries and submits to one another, the Ali Kingdom will have to return to its previous state of being threatened. Chaotic place, really want to take people's lives." The king was sullen on the throne. From behind, Princess Daisy appeared shouting, "Father." King Robertson saw his daughter and asked, "Daisy, why are you here?" Daisy happily took out a bottle of wine and showed it off to her father. Today, she went to the market and found a merchant in Taeduong City who had good wine. The king was a bit curious. He had never heard of this city before. The little princess took the bottle of wine and poured it into the beautiful glass cup in her father's hand and replied, "I have never heard of it, but I think this wine is very delicious. I'm sure Your Majesty will like it, so I bought it." The tester, King Robertson, heard that and laughed and praised, "Ha, daughter is thoughtful." He raised the glass of wine to take a sip. As soon as the drops reached his mouth, the king was surprised and said, "This wine is delicious, so wonderful." Her father was quite happy. Princess Daisy leaned on the throne and said, "That's right, father," the leader there said. "I heard a lot of stories about Taeduong City. It seems to be a very magical city." Hearing his daughter say that, the king's expression was a bit disbelieving. Seeing that, the princess continued, "This is the gift they brought. They said they want to make a deal with us. Do you want to hear it?" Muller brought the gift before the king. Robertson looked at it and exclaimed in surprise. After an unknown amount of time, most of the items in the gift chest had been opened and tried out. King Ali was somewhat happy to say that these were all top-notch items. He said while eating, "There is also this canned food. The food inside is so delicious, the cooking is even better than the chefs in our palace." Princess Daisy, sitting next to him enjoying it, also agreed, "That's right, father, I want to eat these dishes forever." King Ali wiped his mouth with a handkerchief, then asked how much they wanted to sell this for. Hearing this question, Princess Daisy hesitated a bit but finally honestly said, "Father, they want iron ore." The king's face darkened when he heard that, and it was iron ore again. Princess Daisy continued speaking, "Father, I have a few words to say." Hearing this, the king listened with some curiosity. Princess Daisy began to express her opinion, "Father, from the past until now, our Ali Dwarf Kingdom has had to rely on imports for half of its wheat and some cotton. The annual expenditure is huge and we have no export business. To make up for this expense, if it continues like this, what should we do in the future? It's okay now, so what about in the future? What about in 10 years? The king also replied with a sad face, "I know all the problems Daisy mentioned, it's just that we can't export iron ore. It's a rule your grandfather left behind, it's never changed until now. Back then, those kingdoms took our iron ore, created weapons to attack us, so they paid a terrible price. From then on, we no longer exported iron ore." Daisy knew this, but with the current situation, she couldn't help but try to persuade them, but the rules were set by the people, and we couldn't let the kingdom fall into misery just because of one rule. Furthermore, father, they were just a small city in the western Inglu country, and posed no threat to us. The king was silent for a moment and then said, he could not agree now. Hearing that, the princess worriedly called out loudly the two words father. The king added, "At least we must meet them first." Seeing that her father understood her meaning, the princess happily replied, "That's great, her daughter will call her in." Receiving the invitation, Darlene, Mira, and Lelisa entered the main hall. They bowed respectfully and greeted, "Inglu Chamber of Commerce, Darlene pays respect to your majesty." King Ali signaled for the three people to stand up, then said, "Darlene, I have looked through all the goods you brought, the quality is very good, but there are a few questions I need to ask. Why do you need iron ore? If it's for making weapons, we can totally export weapons in exchange for goods with you." Darlene heard that and honestly replied, "Your Majesty, our western city needs a large amount of iron to repair houses and roads due to development." The king asked suspiciously, "Repairing roads and houses, these two things seem to not need iron." Seeing that he didn't believe her, Darlene immediately explained, "Your Majesty, you don't know about our western city. Please let me give you a simple introduction. Our western city is a place of peace, a place of miracles. There, humans and beasts live together in peace, there is no distinction between rich and poor among the people, and there are no servants. The city Lord Lu Feng developed medicine, education, science, and created many miracles. The things you see are all researched by him." The king understood after hearing them. He said, "Yes, I have experienced the magic of these things." Darlene continued to explain that in his plan, the next step was to build dilapidated 100-year-old high-rise buildings for people to use, and use roads to connect places together. He also wanted to create convenient means of transportation for everyone to use, which required a large source of iron, so he arranged for us to come and discuss this matter. I know that what I say makes people feel very fanciful, but your majesty can find the merchants who have been to Shiyang City to ask, and will know whether what we say is true or false. Hearing this, King Robertson burst out laughing and said, "Haha, I believe a merchant would not lie about this." Darlene saw that and happily asked, "So your majesty, sir?" The king immediately interrupted, he raised two fingers and made a request, "I have two conditions, as long as these 2 points are satisfied, I will sell you the iron ore. If everyone agrees to sell us wheat and cloth at a low price, then we can export iron ore to the west." As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere on Darlene's side became a little awkward. She replied, we need to discuss it privately." The three people fell out of the main hall, their faces looked a bit sad, but a second later, Darlene excitedly exclaimed, "Wow!" Lelisa saw that and immediately raised her hand to make a hush signal. Mira still didn't understand, she heard the poem and asked, "Don't we need to negotiate?" Darlene immediately turned around and explained, Mira, this is the art of negotiating conditions, you have to learn a little." Lelisa saw her smug and gently reminded her, didn't she learn from Lu Feng's book? A moment later, Darlene returned to the table to sign the sales agreement. She said, she could sell it 3 times below market price to sell it to you. After discussing, the country was no longer reserved. He extended his hand sincerely, "Good, then I wish us a happy cooperation." Darlene reached out to shake his hand, she continued, "Your Majesty, don't you have a second condition?" Guo Feng smiled a little embarrassedly and said, I really like the fine wine and food of Shiyang City, I hope to be able to taste it often, this condition shouldn't be difficult, right? Darlene replied, of course, no problem. The king of the Manor Kingdom got angry after receiving the news and shouted, what, they rejected us, how dare he reject us, doesn't he want to get through this winter? The servant behind immediately spoke his guess, Your Highness, I think they probably found another merchant to buy the wheat, otherwise. Hearing that, His Highness Mark's face darkened as he ordered, find me, I want to know who exactly ruined my plan. At the current time in the West Ocean City Lord's Mansion. Lu Feng was sitting at the desk in the study, reading the letter and making a judgment. It seemed that a great war was coming. In the letter sent it is written, Sir. Now the eldest prince has organized all the forces in the royal capital, and has more than 4,000 knights under his command. Your subordinates have investigated and found out that the eldest prince will launch a decisive battle with the second prince. Once the eldest prince wins, he will lead his troops west. In addition, there seems to be another force behind the eldest prince, but Xu Xia has not yet been able to find out any information about the other party. I am very sorry, but I hope that you will be careful, Your Excellency. After reading the letter, Lu Feng thought in his head, 4,000 knights, and there was an unknown force behind it. Need to prepare some new things. Thinking so, Lu Feng picked up the brush and started writing something. In the magnificent palace of the Yadian kingdom, the queen of the kingdom was listening attentively to the report of the situation from the son of the Grand Knight Terence. Your Majesty, 2 of the 4 great patriarchs of the Holy Church are already on their way to the Western Ocean City. This was a rare opportunity in 1,000 years, and Queen Timothy was listening calmly. The son of the Grand Knight Terence pondered and asked his opinion, considering whether to take advantage of this opportunity or not. Meanwhile, Count Weiler stood by, clasping his hands behind his back and sighing in disappointment. He then remarked that the 2 of them were truly young and inexperienced. They were still too hasty and immature. Grand Duke Weiler continued. As long as that old man yet is there, the Grand Duke solemnly turned to face the son of the Knight Terence. We cannot just act recklessly. You are right. You don't understand such a basic principle. The son of the great Knight Terence was flustered and asked back, losing his composure. Then what do you want me to do? We just wait here day by day, you're going crazy. Queen Timothy felt a headache coming on as she listened to the argument. The queen leisurely walked down, stood between the 2 of them and said, My lord, you are right. Old man Yat is not a weakling. If we act rashly now, it will only make him happy that we are doing what he wants. The son of the great knight bowed his head, feeling that it was reasonable, so he politely replied to the queen. Yes, Your Majesty, your subordinate understands. Queen Yadian's face was tense. The queen said doubtfully. What kind of place is Western Yang City? What is so great about this place that attracts 2 sect masters? Grand Duke Weiler seemed knowledgeable and gave the queen some advice. Your Majesty, I only know that it is a small city on the border of the Yinglu kingdom. The queen pondered, her face full of doubt. A small city on the border could attract 2 city lords. There must be some earth-shattering secret that this city lord knows. The queen sighed in frustration. If only Robin were here right now. I could have him investigate this matter. Knock, knock, knock. There was the sound of soldiers running. He ran into the hall at full speed, holding a telegram in his hand. He shouted loudly. Your Majesty, Mr. Robin has sent you a letter and a package. Huh? The queen and the other 2 turned to look at the soldier running in. Queen Timothy held the letter from the master in her hand. Robin slowly read the letter attentively. The content of the letter was quite long. In the letter, Robin said, Your Highness, I am now following your plan to find an ally overseas. Not disappointing your expectations, I have found an ideal ally. This friend is the city lord Lu Feng, the city lord of Xi'an City in the Yinglu kingdom. When the queen read this part, she was surprised and even more puzzled. Xi'an City, this place is really strange, it seems interesting. She said to the Grand Duke and the Grand Knight's son. My dears, Robin is in the Western City. The Grand Duke let out an O and the Grand Knight's son said hastily. What? Continuing with the letter, Mr. Robin continued. If Your Majesty wants to fulfill his ideal, Lu Feng City Lord can definitely help Your Majesty fulfill it. Your Majesty should not think that Lu Feng is just the city lord of the faraway Western City and look down on him. He really can help Your Majesty. Holding the letter in her hand, each line and each word from Robin was gradually causing the queen's mind to have a great change. She began to have other thoughts about Lord Lu Feng. Robin continued in the letter. Has Your Majesty ever seen large bridges spanning wide rivers? Has Your Majesty ever seen a smoke-spewing iron machine that runs on its own without human power? Oh my, there are really too many miracles here. Furthermore, Your Majesty, have you ever heard of a way to keep food from spoiling for months? There are also perfumes that can last for up to half a year. These were all invented by Your Majesty Lu Feng. Here, they produce their own products, the people are all happy, absolutely no one frowns and complains, if not for Lu Feng's inventions. Just commanding the troops to protect Xi'an City, His Excellency Lu Feng is a rare genius. How many cities are there where beastmen and humans live together happily and peacefully? The more Mr. Robin wrote, the more he wanted to say. Your Majesty, how many cities can rely on just one citadel to support more than 1,000 soldiers? How many generals can do what 1,000 men can do with only a few casualties, less than the number of fingers on their hands? But these things, Mr. Lu Feng can do with ease. Mr. Robin continued to speak. The more Her Majesty read, the more curious she became about the person who was the Lord of Xi'an City. Mr. Robin continued to speak in the letter. Although His Majesty Lu Feng was now just a small lord of a distant border city, he was definitely the one who held the future direction of the entire Yinglu kingdom. I hope Your Majesty can seriously consider forming an equal alliance with City Lord Lu Feng. Seeing that the Queen had been reading the letter for a while, the Grand Duke asked curiously. What did Robin say, Your Majesty? The Queen held up the letter and handed it to the Grand Duke. Well, everyone read it yourselves. Grand Duke Weiler and the son of the Grand Knight of the Yadian Kingdom, the two of them received the letter and read it seriously. The young man, the son of the Grand Knight, was so surprised that he exclaimed. This is. Is there such a formidable person? The Grand Duke was equally surprised. He continued the words of the young man. If it was really as Mr. Robin said, then forming an alliance would be a very good thing. Her Majesty the Queen sat leisurely on the throne. His Highness replied in agreement. Yes, and Robin's description was so interesting. I myself would like to go and see for myself. The handsome but hasty young man hurriedly stopped His Majesty. Absolutely not, Your Majesty. Last time you used a trick to sabotage old Manyet's plan. Now he has seen that you do not share his aspirations. If you leave now, it is inevitable that you will encounter some unpleasant events along the way. Unlike the Grand Duke's previous criticism of Terence, Grand Duke Weiler also agreed with the Queen. I also agree with Terence. Now is the crucial moment for reform. You absolutely cannot leave the Yadian Kingdom now. The Queen smiled in response to the two people's panic. Don't worry, rest assured, I was just joking. She closed her eyes and spoke calmly and seriously. If you want to change a country, you can't act rashly right now. Every action must have a detailed and clear plan. We can't let the swindlers of the cult continue to spread falsehoods and do bad things in our Yadian Kingdom. The two of them happily agreed and cheered after hearing this. Your Majesty is wise. Having said that, the Queen was extremely worried about her kingdom. She looked into the distance and thought sadly. Yadian. Scene changes to the place where believers are kept in the Yadian Kingdom. Believe in the Master. Absolutely loyal to the Master. An unknown priest stood on the highest steps of the church's palace and shouted loudly towards the believers. In the dark and hazy space, he threw out pieces of paper containing information. These pieces of paper flew all over the great room, falling towards the people standing around below. The mysterious priest continued speaking. Only I, the priest, can save and forgive everyone. Everyone below was also talking excitedly. Yadian Kingdom, the military-powered divine academy. Suddenly, a man knelt before the chief god of the religion. He spoke to the chief god. Your Majesty, the heavy snow in the north has caused serious disasters for the people. It turns out that the Minister of Finance is reporting the situation. The arrogant Minister of Finance who was sitting at the top replied to him. The Minister of Finance quickly mobilized the horse and transport force to rescue the people in the north. The Finance Minister pretended to be worried, this flatterer said. Your Highness, there is not enough food and provisions. The Finance Minister's face was blank, and he continued to speak gloomily, his voice filled with regret. Moreover, the god has already said it. This is a punishment from heaven, making the god angry. If a greater disaster is brought upon us, what should we do? The other flattering ministers standing nearby also took advantage of the opportunity to interject. That's right, that's right. At this moment, a blonde girl was standing outside the hall. She overheard this report and thought. The divine power is supreme, almost half of the counts believe in the priest. Oh my god, the priest sitting above heard these words from the treasurer, and could only angrily shout. You. Then he stood up, regained his composure, and spoke in front of the bustling crowd below. He spread his arms wide and spoke loudly. Believers, the heavy snow in the north is a punishment from heaven. Only by praying to the gods for forgiveness can we be safe and sound. All the ministers below threw coins, some threw bags of gold, everyone shouted in unison. Please forgive us, poor us. Please forgive us, wise master. Talking so loudly, believing so much, being so superstitious, but no one knew if the master was real or not. only saw the group of people belonging to the sect leader in the darkness, smiling sinisterly. Each and every one of them looked very suspicious, they laughed and said. Only by praying to the sect leader can one have a life without worries. At this time, the God King brought over a wooden chest and placed it in front of the ministers. This is your commission this time, you have spread the word very well. Next time you do well, I will reward you more, you don't have to worry about losing out. The flatterers clasped their hands and kowtowed, full of gratitude. Thank you, Master, thank you, Holy Master. The blonde lady remained in her position watching. Seeing this scene, she thought again. None of these high-ranking people paid any attention. Scene change. At this time, Queen Yadian recalled the painful scene of the past. The incompetent king, the people in the north suffered without concern, without asking, without caring about the life and death of the people. Beheading. The scene was full of tragedy and pain when the queen's father was now being beheaded by the masses because the king abandoned the people in the north without concern, without finding a way to solve it. The sounds of beheading, 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 kept echoing in the queen's painful memories. The scene made her teary-eyed, but she didn't dare cry out loud as she watched her father being hooded and beheaded in front of all the people. The queen still remembered every word her father told her before he was executed. Daughter, you absolutely cannot let those people completely destroy the Yadian kingdom. Back to reality, the queen thought angrily. The gods, those people are just a bunch of liars. The Grand Duke looked at the queen's appearance and said, perhaps that old man Yad is also waiting for some special opportunity to make a move. We must especially strengthen our defenses, Queen. Terence replied to the Grand Duke with certainty. Rest assured, Grand Duke, I will tell the detectives below to keep a close eye out. The queen was still deep in thought. Old man Yad, Western City. While the two were conversing and thinking, the queen spoke up. My lords, I have an idea. The queen's sparkling jade eyes flashed with a somewhat satisfied smile. The scene changes to a ship sailing on the cool blue ocean, with seagulls flying and the weather bright and sunny. On the ship, a loud voice echoed. Darlene, when will we finally arrive at the Western Ocean City? Princess Daisy was filled with anticipation, her eyes shining as she continued. Is Xiang City really as magical as you say? Darlene smiled in response. Princess Daisy, when you see it with your own eyes, you will know right away. He, on the first day I arrived in Xiang City, I was just as excited as you. Lady Catherine was even more excited. Princess Daisy's guard ran towards the princess with a worried face and gently reminded her. Princess, you are the image of the entire kingdom. Please pay attention to your image or everyone will laugh at you. Princess Daisy ignored the guard's reminder. She happily followed Darlene and said, Darlene is on the ship, so what's there to be afraid of? We'll pay attention when we reach the Western Ocean City. Suddenly, a sailor on the ship hurriedly ran to where the three people were standing and hurriedly reported. Miss Darlene, there seems to be a naval battle going on up ahead. Darlene exclaimed in surprise after hearing the news. What? There was indeed a naval battle going on ahead of Darlene's ship. The scene was chaotic and devastated. Darlene kindly ordered all her subordinates on board. Hurry, go see if there are any survivors. If there are, save them onto the ship. Hurry, that ship, go see what's wrong with it. A sailor ran up, breathless. Report, Miss Darlene, what's the matter? Miss Darlene, according to the current situation, there seems to be only one person that can be saved. And this person is a bit special. Darlene's worry and disbelief were answered. Is it that cruel? The scene changes to the Xiang City shipyard. City Lord Lu Feng and Mina go to inspect the workers working there. Loud greetings ring out. Your Excellency, greets Lord Lu Feng. Lu Feng walked and observed the ships being built, exclaiming. This ship is really big. The shipbuilder who was leading the two people on a tour happily replied. Lord Lu Feng and Miss Mina, this ship is 100 paces long. Mina was surprised. Wow, so big? The shipbuilder replied even more happily. Thanks to Lord Lu Feng, we are lucky enough to build such a big ship. Lu Feng smiled and congratulated on the outside, but secretly thought to himself, this is just the beginning. When the time comes for battleships and warships to be invented, this wooden ship will be nothing. Mina, on the other hand, was still intoxicated, gaping at the tall and wide ship. Uncle Eli saw Lu Feng and waved hello. Lord Lu Feng. Lu Feng heard Uncle Eli's voice and happily responded. Uncle Eli, you came at the right time. I have something to ask you. Uncle Eli, how is the development of the steamboat? Uncle Eli happily replied. Almost there, but some parts are a bit slow in processing, so... Lu Feng quickly encouraged Uncle Eli. It's okay, Uncle will edit some documents later. Tell me the progress of the components is delayed. I will think of a way for Uncle to solve it. Uncle Li happily replied. Okay, Sir Lu Feng. Lu Feng, the city lord, continued his plans. However, the steamboat must be completed before winter comes. Uncle Li, because I need it for an important project. Uncle Li replied boldly. Yes, please leave it to me. Mina's eyes suddenly widened, unblinking. She wondered doubtfully in her mind. Winter? Why winter? At this time, in the outskirts of Taeduong, there was a person driving a horse-drawn carriage gradually entering the city. 2 guards were hiding by the roadside and saw it. One guard said. Quickly report, the number 1 leader has arrived. Yes, the other guard replied. It seemed that these 2, judging by their uniforms, were not from Lu Feng City Lord's military camp. At that time, at the western military camp, sunlight shone through every corner of the surrounding wall. When General Niu saw City Lord Lu Feng coming, he couldn't help but wonder and greet him. Lord Lu Feng, why are you here? Lord Lu Feng stood on the military camp's castle and replied to Nyoda. I came to check on the training progress of the Wolf Warrior Squad. By the way, I have a few things to tell everyone. Yes, Nyoda replied. Young master, please speak. Lu Feng replied immediately. No rush, take your time and calm down. Tell me about the current situation of the Wolf Warriors first. While the 2 were talking, in the corner, the bodyguard Sink and Miss Mina were happily talking and laughing, asking each other questions and chatting. They looked very happy and excited. Back to the matter that Lu Feng wanted Nyoda to report. Nyoda seriously reported clearly. City Lord, currently, in addition to the team that Miss Mina trained, the Wolf Warrior Squad has 4 other teams formed. While listening to Nyoda's report, the City Lord carefully held the report in his hand and examined it carefully. Then, Nyoda continued his report. Every day, there are 2 teams responsible for the young master's safety. The rest of the time, they will strengthen all aspects of training. Lu Feng asked Nyoda again, does that mean there are 3 teams that can be used? Nyoda, in addition to taking turns doing daily missions, I need 5 squads that can go out and carry out missions. Nyoda frowned, pondered, and replied. There are still 5 teams practicing now. Perhaps we can go out on missions by the end of the month, Lord City. Lu Feng replied with satisfaction. That's good. In addition, I want you, Nyoda, to arrange more night raid training sessions in the city. If necessary, you can use the walls of Xi'an City and tell the army to prepare well for cover. Yes, Ngudai asked doubtfully. Attacking the city at night? Lu Feng replied seriously and decisively. That's right, all training must be completed before winter for me. Mina was chatting with the bodyguard Sink. She heard winter and turned around to ask Lu Feng. Is it winter again? Lu Feng didn't understand what Mina meant, he smiled and asked her back. What's wrong, Mina? Mina replied. Oh no, just now the young master also said that the steamboat must be completed before winter, so I was just a little curious. Mina asked again. Young master, do you have any plans for the winter? Nyoda heard that and was full of energy. Young master gave the order. We will arrange it immediately. Lu Feng saw Mina's question, he crossed his arms and replied. It's okay to tell everyone now. I'm preparing for winter to attack the royal capital. Deal with the hidden threat from that great emperor. What? Both Nyoda and Mina were stunned, unable to believe what they had just heard. Mina said worriedly. Young master, this doesn't seem appropriate. Nyoda also quickly stopped them. Young master, that's too dangerous. Nyoda continued nervously. Fighting in winter, whether it is mobilizing people or transporting supplies, will be extremely difficult, Lord. The more Nyoda spoke, the more he tried to stop him. From the past until now, whenever a war was launched in winter, the attacking side would always lose. So no one expected it. Lu Feng calmly interrupted Nyoda. He continued. So when no one expected it, we would attack in winter, the enemy would be complacent and fail. I said, do you think it's reasonable? Nyoda still maintained his point of view. Young master, it's good to exceed expectations. However, Lu Feng stopped Nyoda from continuing. Lu Feng affirmed. Rest assured. What Nyoda is considering, I have also thought of. Nyoda was still very worried, expressing his doubts. Seeing this, Lu Feng immediately spoke. But our Xi'an city has an advantage. Other cities don't have what we have, Nyoda, think about it. Nyoda seemed to suddenly realize something. City Lord Lu Feng continued speaking. Before winter comes, we will have a batch of steamboats put into the water for testing. They will be dangerous ships for the enemy. A steamboat? Nyoda asked in surprise. Is it the boat that the young master said could run without using wind or human power? Lu Feng replied with a light smile. That's right. Nyoda remembered something and said, if that's the case, young master, we can definitely defeat the eldest prince and leave him unprepared, Nyoda said loudly with great confidence. Ha ha ha, Lu Feng just laughed. After that, he reminded Nyoda before leaving with Mina. Alright, then you should go train quickly. By then, the Wolf Warrior Squad will be in charge of the action, leading the way, so there won't be much time left for everyone. Nyoda entered the Sync Guard and bowed his head in obedience. Nyoda thought to himself, his heart filled with determination. Going on an expedition in winter, attacking the royal capital, must win. This is the opportunity to leave your name in history and become a great general. At this time, at the port of Taeduong City, Darlene's ship carrying Princess Daisy had docked at the port. Princess Daisy cried out in joy. Wow wow, that's great. The princess's face was filled with freshness, joy and surprise. She said, this is the Western Ocean City. With so many ships, it looks very prosperous. The princess's guard was also very surprised. He looked around the harbor. Then he said, Miss Daisy, the cities in the Yinglu Kingdom are as prosperous as the Western Ocean. Darlene quickly explained. No, Xi'an City is the most prosperous city in this Yinglu Kingdom. The guard was stunned. Even more prosperous than the royal capital. This is. Darlene did not answer all the guard's questions because of time constraints. She said to Princess Daisy. Princess Daisy, Lord Lu Feng is waiting for you in the castle. Please follow me. The princess also responded excitedly. Okay, I understand. The princess was led by Darlene to the Western City Lord's mansion. At that time, Lord Lu Feng was already waiting in the hall.